In 3, 2, 1.
This is Doug Plank, former Chicago Bear. You're listening to Braggs in the Stands.
Glon, you're on ESPN. Let's go to Braggs first. Greg Braggs is there. Braggs, what's on your mind?
Not Micah Parsons, man. What a moment that was last night as a Bears fan. Happy Fields Day to you guys. It's a new era in Chicago Bears football. I'm really excited to get on with this. I feel like it's revitalized the fan base, obviously, but also the team, I think, is going to come out with a different sense of urgency. And like you always say, Silvy, the journey is better than the destination most times, and this is the start of the journey. This is where it's fun and exciting and positive vibes and going into camp. It's going to be crazy when fans finally return to Soldier Field and you got Justin Fields running out that tunnel. And to your point, Silvy, as far as whether or not he starts, like Jeff Dickerson pointed out, it depends on the situation. You know, Alex Smith had been with the Chiefs for a few years and was, already acclimated with what they were doing. Andy Dalton's coming in just as fresh with this team as Justin Fields is. And to your point about Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll couldn't look his team in the face coming out of camp in preseason because he knew he was better. If that's what happens, so be it. But that's why that's up to Matt Nagy to make the correct determination and be confident and stick with what he decides to do, when we get to that point. But it's a glorious day in Chicago sports history between that and Aaron Rodgers talking about leaving the Packers for Jeopardy. I'll tell you what, if he goes to Jeopardy, I'll record every single show. I will watch every day. I'll laugh along with him. I support him in his Jeopardy speech. Go ahead, go over there. But
I'm so happy, Braggs. I'm so happy that. Are you vaccinated?
I'm first shot in. I got 3 more to go.
After your second shot, I will give you a sweaty summer tank top hug.
I am totally down for that. I look forward to it more than you can imagine. This summer is going to be a beautiful thing. I'll talk to you guys soon. Happy Fields Day.
Happy Fields Day. That's Greg Braggs, big listener. 312-332-3776. I mean, imagine this, JD.
Happy Fields Day indeed. Big show tonight. Let's go. The Bears, they started this new tradition last year where they celebrate their wins the correct way.
Waddle and Silvy, ESPN 1000, don't miss it.
I know what you mean.
It's like their own Philly.
Okay. Okay, I think what it is.
We shouldn't be showing this. Am I crazy?
you 17 minutes of rain would wash away 108 years of drought.
Do you see this team growing into the team that you were in 2005?
Great practice, everybody.
Ridiculous.
Most impressed with how well they collaborate.
They point to the ability to overcome adversity, the need to adapt to challenges, the need to have a collaborative working environment.
And you're going to hear this word a lot today because it's true, is collaboration. The collaboration that Matt and I have.
What we've done in the past couple of years together, there's conviction and there's collaboration to dig in and reflect and say why.
When you can collaborate,
I think it's the way they collaborate. We think that their collaboration will result in the right decisions. The leadership, the collaboration, the adaptability, again, the collaboration.
It's the collaborative relationship that Matt and I have.
So when you look at the whole product and the collaboration,
it's a collaborative effort.
Again, I've told you about the collaboration and nothing's changed there. So it's been a great collaboration.
I know we keep on using the word collaborative, but it's so real.
Gotta keep it collaborating.
Mike Berman.
Hey, Justin, welcome to Chicago and congratulations. I think you touched on this last night, but wondering if you can expand on it. You know, you're sitting inside of Hallis Hall, the headquarters of the Bears, and you understand the history of the quarterback position with this franchise and how tortured the fan base is and how badly they want a franchise quarterback to lead the way. Mm-hmm. How do you look at that opportunity? How do you approach it? How do you look at it? How do you maybe prevent the pressure from pouring down on you?
I don't think there's pressure at all on me because I expect myself to, be a franchise quarterback. So, there's really no added pressure. I came from a big program like Ohio State where, the fan base is very passionate about their sport. So there's definitely no added pressure on me in terms of that. I expect myself to be a franchise quarterback and one day, hopefully a top 5 quarterback in this league. So that's what I'm going to, thrive to do. I'm going to work every day to, reach my goal and reach new heights. So, yeah.
I'm kind of curious, during the time period before you got drafted, do you spend time researching the possible teams that you could be taken and kind of dig into how you could fit?
I definitely do because my family, they like to send me the mock drafts. Like I don't really like to pay attention to all that stuff. But then when they send it to me, I start looking at like how I fit in the scheme and how I fit in the type of place and area of the city that's going to be in. And I definitely saw myself very, very entwined with Chicago, and I'm very happy to be here.
What specifically did you find interesting for you with the Bears?
Oh, they're just smash mouth like type people. They're very, very aggressive. They're very. I'm about to say I have a lot of words that are not like appropriate for camera use. I would say, I'm about to say I like to be have the awareness of people around me and the people I'm in with right now. So let's just leave it at how aggressive they are. That's how it's going to be.
Thank you.
All smiles here at Braggs in the Stands and in Hallis Hall too. We've got a lot of different people here joining the show tonight, but we're going to start it off with a very special guest joining us for the second time. He was on our first ever show for Braggs in the Stands, the greatest punt returner in Chicago Bears history. No, that's not what it is, but he did have an amazing one here that I always like to play when he comes on, rocking and rolling. My guy, Gregory Thomas Waddle, as he takes it all the way to the end zone for a touchdown in the preseason. Welcome back to the show, Tommy Waddle. How are you doing tonight?
I'm old. I'm tired, but like I think I mean, you make me feel good. I look back at those old days. That was in preseason too. So I'm
Hester who?
Exactly. Like, look, I think I lulled everyone to sleep there by actually muffing the punt to start with, but I'm good. I'm thrilled to join you again.
Well, I appreciate it. And quickly, I want to introduce our panel tonight. We have a panel, and we're going to keep it nice and tight for you. But I did want to introduce everybody properly. This is my co-host and really good friend, Johnny B, as we affectionately call him. He's a man that wears many hats and a diehard Chiefs fan. And he's a great friend of mine. And we're excited to have you on. To quickly move it along, we also have Salim Sudarwala from the Bulls Gold podcast. And you can go ahead and say hi, Salim, if you'd like. I know you had a little backstory behind exactly who you are to Tommy Waddle.
I'm the guy that always tweeting at you that you're having a good day.
yes, it's good to see you. I think you got mad at me one time when I didn't respond. But
no, it wasn't you. I was mad at Braggs and someone else because they came in and just started tweeting, and I didn't know if you would not see my message because they were all replying to you too. So I was like, man, what the hell? Why are you guys coming in here?
I am an attention hog, but finally our last man on the panel is our guy, BEARMAN.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knows Don the BEARMAN, needs no introduction, but we're excited to have him on too. Why don't you go ahead and say hi, Don?
Yeah.
So
yeah, BEARMAN, it's hard to recognize Don sometimes without the gear on, but
That's right. And the final person that wants to say hi to you here is my little girl here. Here we go. We'll pull it up here on the screen. Look how big she's getting.
You know what?
We need her to be the host.
Hold on 1 second. Rags, I still have your Christmas card with Addie everywhere that's up in my office, right next to my one of my Boston College favorite items. So
look, say hi, Addison. Say hi, Tommy.
Hi, Tommy.
Hi, Addison. She's my favorite member of the Braggs family.
She is. And Salim was saying that, I got her the shirt. We're all getting our new Braggs in the Stand shirts for the summer. And I said, that's my eventual replacement here on Braggs in the Stands, and I guarantee she'd do a better job than me at this.
A long way to go. You've done a very nice job, but listen, our kids are replacements for everything in life, my friend.
Yes, and you have nothing but girls, in your household, and we're just about to move into our house and maybe try for two, and who knows which way I'll go. But I always wanted a boy, and I was, when I had Addison, it was like, oh no. How am I ever going to get one? But she's been the greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
Shame on you for saying that in her presence. Like somebody said to me after, like I have 4 daughters. Somebody said to me after the second daughter, when we had our third daughter, Leah, somebody actually said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, what would you be apologizing for? All I want is healthy children." And by the way, I have only girls, and I'm kind of comfortable raising these young ladies. So
I grew up with nothing but women, and it's served me well because I've learned how to respect others and respect women and be good in that way. And I'm definitely a good girl dad, and it's been the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, no doubt. But it is scary to think about, But no apologies for having 4 girls. That's a blessing. And you're right. When you have a kid, all you want is for them to be healthy because it's the scariest thing ever to have a kid. But let's get right into it. And we're going to pop Salim and BEARMAN and Johnny B in and out, but we're going to try to keep it as tight as we can with you. Let's just get right into it. The Justin Fields era has begun officially. Couldn't be more excited about that for me personally as a Bears fan. And I know you too, just talking about it all week long on the Waddle and Silvy show. This is a whole new direction the Bears have taken. They tried to mortgage their future for Russell Wilson, and here we are. We end up with some luck in the draft. Justin Fields falls to 11, and now he's in our laps. What are your thoughts on everything that's transpired in the last week?
Yeah, I think I'm exceptionally excited about it for sure. I was very excited for how the Bears handled this entire draft. Look, I thought that 2017 in a previous life, Ryan Pace was a little bit maybe too aggressive, and that's with the benefit of hindsight. I think this time, there was some good fortune with the way that the draft unfolded, but by the same token, I give them a lot of credit for letting the draft come to them. I had Justin Fields, and I'm no quarterback guru, I'm no draft guru, but I had Justin Fields as the second best quarterback in the draft behind Trevor Lawrence. So I never thought he was going to be available on, my prediction my hope was they were going to be able to upgrade their offensive line with Tevin Jenkins, the kid from Oklahoma State. And I mean, not to jump too far ahead, but to be able to come out of this draft with Justin Fields, who I thought was the second best quarterback in this draft, and then the offensive tackle that I was hoping they would get at 20, thrilled. Look, again, I think they did a really nice job letting the draft come to them, but at the same time being proactive. And I think that these guys get an opportunity to change the narrative. Greg, I've always said, and it's really simple, and people laugh at me for saying it, but you change the narrative by changing the narrative. None of us want to be overly critical or consistently critical of Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, but based on how Ryan has done in the first round of the draft or acquired quarterbacks, and I've been critical of Matt and how he handled Mitch at the end. I've also always said that I think Mitch ate his brain, and I think that Matt ate Mitch's brain at the end, and it just went sideways. I think these guys have a really good opportunity to change the narrative. I think if we look 2 or 3 years down the road and Justin Fields is the guy we all think he can be, then the narrative changes for Ryan Pace and his ability to identify quarterback talent. And if Matt does a good job of bringing Justin Fields along, and I've got a pretty good feeling that he'll have better success this time around because Fields is his guy, then Matt changes the narrative. So, again, we've spent the last 18 months probably being very negative about this team, but somebody said on our show the other day or was focusing on Silvy and says, I think you need to apologize to Ryan Pace. That was bullshit. You don't need to apologize to Ryan Pace. He owed us. Yeah. But like I said, by the same token, you change the way we feel about you when you do a better job. So like I said, this team runs through my veins. I love them. I've wanted to love this team. I always love this team, but I want to like this team. And I felt like they really handled the draft weekend like an organization that had their you-know-what together.
Yep, they absolutely did. And we have the chat is very fired up to see you. And we got Ron Rupno on the chat, and he stole my next question, so I'll just let him ask it. Do you think Justin Fields will play in 2021? Or is he going to have to wait his turn behind Andy Dalton? For me and you, Waddle, our history of sparring on the air started in a lot of ways with Mike Glennon versus Mitchell Trubisky. And I called in weeks in a row saying Glennon was terrible at camp. And then that ended up coming to fruition, and Trubisky ended up coming in week 5, and that whole process seemed to be a mess. But as you mentioned, Justin Fields is a different echelon of talent. This is a different stratosphere when you're talking about where he's coming from, and even his intelligence, I think, is key. You talk about his IQ testing being off the charts and his pedigree of where he came from in the games he's played in. How fast do you think he's going to be able to assimilate? Do you think he could start week 1? And what do you think is the best course of action for Justin Fields this season?
I think he'll dictate that to all of us. Look, the likelihood is that he will play, and it's more likely that he'll play sooner rather than later. That's just what history tells us. I think if you look back over the last 5 to 10 years, more guys have played than not played. I think Jordan Love last year was one of the only first-round draft picks at the quarterback position that didn't play in his rookie year. I know Patrick Mahomes didn't play until the 16th game, but he did play. Most guys who are drafted in the first round ultimately play. Now, with that said, I think the Bears are in the catbird seat with this. I don't think they have to play him. I don't think Andy Dalton is an enormous difference maker, but he's a very competent veteran quarterback who can be a placeholder until Justin Fields is ready to go. But if Justin comes into camp and actually shows you in much the way that Russell Wilson did with the Seattle Seahawks back in the day that he's ready to go and he's the better option than the free agent quarterback that you added, then I don't have any problem seeing him play. Like there's two paths here, and I'm not one that subscribes to one being better than the other. I think these are all individual conversations. There's the path that Seattle went. They signed Matt Flynn years ago when you were probably still in diapers, Bragg.
Not quite.
But they signed Flynn as a free agent, drafted Wilson in the 3rd round, and I don't think they were expecting to play Russ. But Russ was by far the better option, and he started. The other option was in Kansas City, where Alex Smith was in charge of what they were doing, and they used that time to get Patrick Mahomes acclimated, and he only played the final game. I think that the way I think of Justin Fields is he played exceptionally well on the biggest stage under the brightest lights. And in a lot of ways, I compare him to how Deshaun Watson came out of Clemson. He's a guy that won't be overwhelmed. He's a guy that I believe is more pro-ready than a lot of these guys. But you don't have to rush him. So, I mean, he'll dictate policy to them. Like I said, if he shows them that he's ready to go, I got no problem with him playing from day one. If he shows them that maybe it's best that he continues to learn and kind of just learn how to be a pro and see some things from the sideline for a while, then you play Andy Dalton. At the end of the year, I think that he'll play quite a bit. I wouldn't be shocked if he played week 1. I wouldn't be shocked. Like I'm not waffling. I just think that
I agree with you. Nothing should be premeditated right now. Let it be decided at camp and preseason. I'm 100% with you because, like you said, Russell Wilson, I feel that it's going to be similar to that situation when you consider his IQ and talent level and the whole bit. But also when it comes to Andy Dalton, Alex Smith comparisons, even though Andy Dalton's certainly better than Matt Flynn, Andy Dalton isn't like Alex Smith in that Alex played with the Chiefs for like 5 years or whatever it was a veteran to that team.
Alex Smith, I believe, went to the Pro Bowl that year. That
was the best year of his career. And I don't think we're ready for Andy Dalton's best year of his career, as much talent as we have on this team. So I think they're kind of coming into camp even the same way Glennon and Trubisky did, but we're talking about a much bigger echelon of talent with Justin Fields, obviously. So I think best case scenario, he starts week 1, but I'm with you. Nothing should be premeditated. And this is obviously Matt Nagy's biggest decision of this offseason. Johnny B, what do you got here for Tommy Waddle?
Yeah, Tom, I just wanted to get your opinion. We had Mitch Holthus in here yesterday, and I kind of asked him, I was doing the interview with him, voice of the Chiefs, and he does a lot of the TV stuff and radio and all that. And he said, I asked him when he knew it was the when did you know moment for Patrick Mahomes. And he said he knew that he was going to be a stud in training camp 2017. Right. And the Chiefs decided not to throw him out there. Alex definitely mentored him and a lot of the fan base, because we were looking for that next level type of starter. I mean, Alex was winning and we were getting to the playoffs every year, but we weren't doing anything in the playoffs. So they ultimately sat Mahomes till that last game, and he showed some moxie and got the W and driving down for a last-second field goal to win the game. Do you think there's going to be too much pressure for the fan base, wanting to have that star power, wanting to have that, finally that quarterback that just takes the face of the Bears franchise? And is there a little bit of a risk there, maybe throwing him out too early before he sees the speed of the NFL cornerbacks and linebackers?
I don't think that he'll be overwhelmed by the pressure. I mean, look, you play in a big conference for a national powerhouse like Ohio State. I don't think you'll be overwhelmed by it. Whether or not you're ready to go and you're fully comfortable being under center at the NFL level, that's a different, like I said, that's a different conversation. I think that if there's any question at all, they're going to err on the side of caution. I've been telling people, and I may end up being wrong, but I've been saying to people as loud as I can, and it frustrates me at times as well, I don't think that there is any job security issues up at Halas Hall with the general manager or the head coach.
Right.
I think that provides some comfort for them, and there's no reason to rush these guys. Like, I heard this narrative for forever that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy have to win in 2021. I just personally never believed that. If you watch the postseason press conference with George and Ted, I never got the impression that either guy was on the hot seat. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if Ryan Pace had a contract extension that matched up with Matt.
Right.
So I guess, the point I'm making here is that I don't think that there's any sense of having to rush or panic here. If Matt believes that Justin Fields is ready to go first and foremost, whether or not he gives you the best chance to win, he may give you the best chance to win, but he may not be overall ready to go. I don't think Matt's going to pull the trigger on him with regard to asking him to start until Justin shows him he's ready to go. That may happen from day one, but I think that there's a luxury here. I don't think the coach and the general manager are under any pressure in the immediate run. I don't think I don't think Justin Fields as a rookie quarterback is under any too much pressure. I think they're going to play this thing very, very reasonable and very cautious. But as I said, I think Justin will dictate when he plays.
Could you see them doing something similar in Chicago like they did in Miami, where Fitzmagic comes out the first few games of the season, they have that early bye, then they throw Tua in there, and he's showing some flashes a little bit here and there, and then they're in some close games, but Tua's not playing that well. And then a lot of people were kind of wondering why they would pull Tua out of those games and then put Fitzmagic in, and then Fitzmagic brings them back, and they won a couple games and made it close a couple times. Could you see something like that happening just to get him some reps in the NFL, or do you think that's something that could hurt the confidence of a young quarterback by pulling him out of the game, especially when it's close still?
I don't think that they would make the change. That was kind of a weird situation.
I thought that was, yeah.
I don't think Brian Flores, Boston College guy, was trying to do what was best and trying to get his team to the postseason. And I felt that at one point he thought that using Fitzpatrick was the way to go. I just don't see them. I don't see the Bears doing that. Like, you could sell me on them bringing Justin in for a few plays here and there, but I don't think – I'm not a fan of taking a yo-yo approach where you're playing Dalton and then you're disappointed with Dalton in some way, so you play Fields, and then maybe you realize that Fields isn't a little bit over his head, so you go back to Dalton. I don't see that being their path. I just don't. I think they're going to be very deliberate. I think they're going to be very reasonable. I have a really good feeling about how this will work. And like Greg said, this is an entirely different situation than the one they had with Mitch. I think because Fields is Matt's guy, I think that relationship will be better. It will provide more positive moments. I just think it's going to be it's an entirely different situation, in my opinion. And I think that the outcome will be entirely different as well.
So, yeah, and I want to bring Salim into this conversation, a big time ESPN 1000 listener. And, but I also want to push back a little bit before I let Salim get his question in. On this, I do agree the leash has been extended for Matt and Ryan Pace. Ryan certainly deserves a lot of credit for being patient and doing this draft right. But then also, Matt Nagy's draft evaluation process should be trusted. But I think Matt still has a lot to prove when it comes to running an offense and being consistent. And I'm not saying he'd get fired after this year, but if they're not if Justin Fields starts week 1 and they still can't get first downs and they're still not running the ball and they're still running the short side of the field, I think there'll be a lot of questions. And I think the 3-year leash is a little long. I think a 2-year leash is definitely fair for the rights to actually groom this quarterback correctly. But man, he's really got to show us because he's got all the talent across the board. Now, Salim, quickly, what kind? I know you had a question for Tom. Why don't you go ahead and fire away?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Anthony Miller. Now, I know the Bears were looking to trade him at one point because of on-field conflict issues, him getting kicked out of the game against the Saints. But being that he is a talented player, going into the season when you have a potential franchise quarterback, do you think they should just keep him, see what he can do, and maybe redeem himself?
Look, I think Anthony is a tremendously talented player. I don't know if what's best for him is a change of scenery. I felt that way at the end of this year. We had George McCaskey on our radio show, and he was audibly disappointed in how Anthony handled himself in the playoff game against New Orleans, considering that they had history earlier in the year with dealing with one of their cornerbacks. I think there's some disappointment that after a very good freshman campaign that he took a couple of steps back. He not a guy that has paid a tremendous attention to detail at times. I think he's a guy that creates tremendous separation in his routes. I think there's explosion in there. I think he has shown you that there are some concentration lapses at times, but he can catch the football. Whether it's here in Chicago, Salim, or it's somewhere else, I think Anthony's got some football to be played, and I think he's got some contributing to do. I'm not suggesting to you he'll ever be a number one. I'm not even going to suggest to you that he'll be, a really good, solid number two. I'm just going to tell you he's a guy that in my world, in the right situation, if he's focused and he's being coached correctly, he's a kid that can catch 50 balls a year for 750 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns and create some splash plays for you. So they probably tried to move him, couldn't really find anything that they thought was valuable enough. And I wouldn't be shocked to see them still bring him back and give him another chance, but the leash would probably be very short.
And I think trading up to get Tevin Jenkins in the second round and eliminating third and fourth round pick played into that because they didn't have any equity, even though they got Daz Newsome later in the draft. I think holding on to him is the smarter thing because it's more of a maturity thing than a talent thing when it comes to Anthony Miller. He's got all the talent in the world, led rookies in touchdowns his first year. Now he's got Justin Fields here, and I think everyone's going to come in with a new sense of urgency. Salim, we appreciate your question, but I do have to bring in our other special guest very quickly, Tom, before we let you get back to the Cubbies, who are tied 2-2 in the top of the 6th inning. And then I think you said you had a hockey game too you were keeping an eye on or something like that. But we do have one of the greatest Chicago Bears of all time, the hitman himself, laying the wood here, as you can see in this video. Our guy who's making his second appearance to Brags in the Stands, and I had to have you guys both on at the same time as he lays dudes out back in the day where I wasn't even a twinkle in my mom's eye yet. But Doug Plank, welcome to the show. I wanted you and Tommy Waddle to share the stage here on Brags in the Stands for a second. It's truly an honor to have both of you guys on this show. And I wanted to ask both of you, and I'll start with you, Doug, and then I'll move to you, Waddle. You can also bounce off of this. What is it like for the both of you to be forever immortalized in Chicago Bears history?
I think it matters what you're immortalized for. Usually I was late hits, spearing people, just smashing people. You know what? But that's the way the league was back in 1975. I mean, when I came in, Jack Pardee, a guy that had played in the league himself, he was all about tough guys. And I figured that out real fast. And having been on Ohio State's kickoff team for 3 years, I knew the kickoff routine, and that was what I was going to give them at free safety. And I was going to try to separate everybody from the football and just hit people from the beginning of the game to the end. And I think, that style worked really good in Chicago because that's exactly what they needed at the time.
And Tommy, for you to be a part of this history, you were at Bears 100 and saw the embrace of all the fans from all over the world. What's it like for you to know that you're a part of that history?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to share, this stage with Doug, who was such an accomplished player. I'm just glad that I didn't play while Doug was playing because the rules were different back then, and I don't know that I'm upright at this point. But look, I think that Doug makes some great points, and I always say, it's my dream was to play in the National Football League. It wasn't my expectation. So to be able to do it, and also be able to do it for the Charter franchise, and be able to suit up with guys like Hampton and Dent and McMichael and Singletary and Sean Gale and just the list goes on, and Ron Rivera. And, it was just such an honor. I was in awe every day I went to practice. I was immensely thankful for the opportunity that I was given. And I also understood the enormity of where I was on a consistent basis walking into Hallis Hall. So for me, it was a treat. It was an honor. And look, it was a dream come true for me.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Steve Mongo McMichael. I have a video quickly. It's only a few seconds long. Like to play of Steve Mongo McMichael at Bears 100, sharing his thoughts on what it's like to be a part of Bears history.
That didn't watch you. You were born to be a Bear, but to be considered a top 20 in the 100-year history. What does it mean to you?
That's unbounded history, isn't it? Everybody wants their name to be spoken through eternity, right? What you do in life speaks eternally. And I am so glad to be a Chicago Bear and part of you guys' history.
Thank you, Steve. Steve Michael, and he's Bear.
There it is. Steve Mongo McMichael. As you can see, the GoFundMe at the bottom of the page, because now Steve Mongo McMichael is in the battle of the hardest battle he'll ever face against ALS, a very, very ugly disease. And he's got a very positive spirit. He was on the Waddle and Silvy show last week. It was one of the greatest interviews you guys have ever done. And was great to hear his positive spirit, even through what he's going through right now. I'd love to know what your guys' thoughts are with Steve Mongo McMichael battling through this and the camaraderie you guys have as alums of the Chicago Bears, and maybe some memories that you have, each of you, that you'd like to share. I'll start with you, Tommy.
Well, I've always said, and my guess is Doug, that Doug would concur. Steve's probably the most underrated Bear in the history of the franchise. I say that from a kind of a wide perspective, because I think inside the building and inside the organization and inside the football universe, he is acknowledged as being one of the great players in the history of the organization. I believe there's only two people in the history of this sport who were solely defensive tackles that have more sacks than Steve McMichael. So we're not even going to talk about how great he was as a run stuffer. But as a pass rusher, only Warren Sapp and John Randall had more sacks as a defensive tackle. I think that Steve is a better football player than several of the guys that are in the National Football League Hall of Fame. I have immense respect for what Steve was as a football player, and even more respect for him as a human being, because if you've ever been around Steve out in a public environment, everybody counts. Everyone is loved and everyone is handled the same way. It's a tragedy what he's dealing with, but I'm a better person having, worked for 6 years with Steve McMichael.
100%. And Doug, for you, you played with Steve for a short period of time, correct? And at the start of his career, what are some of your thoughts with Steve and some of the memories you have with him?
Let me first say hi to Tom, because you know what? After we leave a team, we're still fans of that team.
Yes.
Tom, you were like, I yelled and screamed for you so many times. And you know what? You made all the catches. It didn't matter who hit you, what kind of situation you had to go into. I mean, to me, that was the ultimate. You had a fear factor. And there's some guys out there that are great players, but they got fear. And and they get all caught up in not being able to execute whatever they're doing. And that wasn't Tom. I mean, Tom got hit so many times catching balls and still made a catch. I just got to tell you, I admire you. So thanks.
Those words mean a lot to me. Thank you.
Really, I'm serious. Steve, I did something with Steve about 4 months ago, and it was an appearance in Chicago, and he was complaining of his shoulders, and he said his shoulders were really, really hurting. And of course, now we know why, with the disease that he has. And, Steve was just such a funny guy. He would go in the weight room and put like 400 pounds on the bench press and bounce it off his chest like 10 or 15 times. Now, no normal person would do that. And I'll just say this. If you were ever going down a dark alley in downtown Chicago somewhere, I don't care. God forbid, it would ever happen. But all due respect to Dan Hampton and Mike Hartenstein and everybody else, I want Steve next to me, because you know why? This guy will go to any length in protecting you. And that's exactly the way he played. I mean, he was just, one of those guys would sacrifice his body. I mean, just do everything he could to make everybody else around him play better.
Yeah.
100%. And I definitely wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, because it's a tough one. And again, the GoFundMe is at the bottom of the page. Please share as much or help as much as you can, or share it along so others can help as well, because Steve needs it more than ever, and that's what we are as Bears. We're family, the fans and the team, and we all stick together. Even the WWE, I saw Ric Flair had stopped by his house the other day, and that puts a lot of warmth to my heart because these are people I've idolized growing up, watching you guys play on the field, watching Steve on the field and on the wrestling ring as a four horsemen, and to see everyone kind of come together to help Steve means a lot. Quickly, one of the last things I wanted to touch on with you, Waddle, is, you mentioned, not wanting to play in Doug's era because he might lay the wood on you. But I was wondering, because we wanted to share this picture, Tommy, this guy's still pumping iron in a big way.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, Tommy, if we did a push-up contest between you two, you're in great shape too, Tommy. So I'm not trying to diminish you, but Doug is a different animal. Like, he blows me away with his passion and intensity that he still carries to this day.
I'm not going to win a push-up contest with Doug Plank, nor do I want to enter into one. Like, my picture is going to look significantly different than that one right there. I'm just surprised those are only 45-pound dumbbells. I was expecting them to be 85-pound dumbbells.
Well, I have the 85s for the home course.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the guy taking a picture took like 5 minutes, so I'm glad I had the 45s.
Yeah. I do when I'm doing shoulder shrugs or I'm doing, my calf lifts, I'll get the 50-pound weights. I tell Jenny, I'm like, these are too heavy. Like, how do people bicep curl these? But Doug's over there still pumping them in, making us all look bad as he does, but certainly making us look good here on Brags in the Stands. And it's truly an honor to share the stage with the both of you here tonight. And, we've got Don the Bearman here in the back, and I know he's a huge fan of the both of yours as well. And you mentioned, being with Steve Mongo, and I know Bearman was with him, and we'll get to Bearman here shortly as we talk to Doug, and we're going to wrap things up here with Waddle. Let him get to the Cubs game as they're trailing now 3-2 in the bottom of 6, but just got a man on first. But I would love, Tommy, the first time you were on our show, didn't get a chance to get a station ID from you, brother, and I know it would certainly mean a lot to us over here at Brags in the Stands. If you wouldn't mind popping one in, and then I'll cut you loose and let you get back to your sports viewing and relaxing, because I know you got a busy day of work tomorrow. So basically, you know how it works. You know the drill. Just, who you are and what you do, and you're listening to Brags in the Stands, and I can give you the countdown and the whole bit. So here we go. Let me get it up so I can get your nice nameplate up that my good friend and co-host Jake works hard to make for us. And you ready, brother?
Sure.
All right, I'll give you the countdown in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, this is Tom Waddle, worn out former Chicago Bears wide receiver, and you are listening to Greg Brags in the Stands.
Boom, as Matt Nagy would say. Definitely a lot of different stuff to cover with you, Tom, but that was as much as we could fit in tonight. Really appreciate all your time. You're a great friend, and I can't believe I say that. I've become friends with Doug Plank too now here in the last couple of years through Bearman, of course, and just for me as a fan, that's truly an honor and a thrill that I never thought I'd be able to experience. And this picture one day I'll hang proudly in my man cave. She's all of our favorite Brags, that's for certain. But yeah, man, you have a good one. I don't know if I've ever.
Great to see you, man.
Good to see you too, Doug. I always appreciate our conversations.
You're the best, man. You're the best.
My best to you and the family, my friend.
Okay.
All right, Tommy, we'll cut you loose. Thanks again for everything. I'll be calling into ESPN 1000 to bug you sometime soon. Thanks for everything. Enjoy the rest of your night, my man.
Thank you. Be well, Doug. Good to see you, buddy.
Tom. You say thank you.
That is Tom Waddle, former Chicago Bears wide receiver and current radio host of ESPN 1000 and the Waddle and Silvy show. Really good guy, and that was an amazing moment here on Brags in the Stands to have you guys share the stage here, and truly an honor to be able to try and facilitate that. So we're going to get right into it. Like I said, we got Salim and Bearman and Johnny B here in the backstage, and we can bring them all up here. But before we get into it, we'll take a little quick hiatus while I give a little shout out to our sponsors here at Braggs in the Stands. My good friend Brian Potter does a great job over there building beanbag boards, and they're actually on the professional circuit. And he's been our first sponsor, our only sponsor, and a heck of a guy. Maybe getting some future sponsors here going forward, but want to give my guy Fanbags a shout out. So that Tom Waddle and some Doug Plank interview was brought to you by Fanbags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS for 10% up. 10% off. Step up your game with Fanbags Cornhole, as Johnny B helps me finish that as I stumbled through the end. But you know what? I picked myself back up, Doug, and finished the read. And now here we are to kind of start this whole journey back over. We talked with Tom Waddle about the start of this era, and this is my co-host Johnny B that you've met before. Or actually, he was at the
Super Bowl.
He was actually at the Super Bowl when we did our show with me, you, and Jake, and he was itching and scratching to come on. Johnny, why don't you tell him a little back history of you and your respect to Doug Plank?
Well, I'm from Chicago originally. I am the Chiefs fan extraordinaire, as Greg calls me, but my mom is anybody that lays the wood, my man, as I told you when I was talking with you at the Super Bowl in Tampa, and she told me the stories, when you were playing about how you would lay the guys out and how they wouldn't want to catch the ball over the middle or whatever. You, Gary Fensick, those were her boys, man. So when I got back from the Super Bowl, even though we lost, I told my mom right away, I said, I talked to your boy on the show, and she was all pumped up, and she's like, oh my God, I wish I'd have been watching. So yeah, so your name has been used in our home since I was a little boy, and still she talks about it because when we watch the games, I got to set up at my house with all the football, the TVs, and she's like, they just don't hit like they used to. So
that's right.
Well,
they don't.
You. I tell you, that makes me feel good. You're right. It would be difficult right now playing with the rules that are under effect in the National Football League. And I think even as it was back in the 70s, even though the rules were much looser, I would say, there was times where officials would come up and say, come on, Doug, did you really have to do that? And I said, yes, I did. I really needed to do that. And I only got fined once. There was no penalty on the play. So, here's the other thing. 3 out of the 8 years that I played with the Bears, I was the least penalized player on the team. So how could you be this bad, terrible person and be at the, have the fewest penalties? So,
that's called respect and fear, my man. I love it. I love it.
But no, I really, really enjoyed coming to Chicago Bears. After Ohio State, I injured my leg the first day of practice on AstroTurf, and I needed surgery. So then I came back my sophomore year, and I was always a backup. And I played 5 games because of injuries, the first round draft choices. So I got in 5 games, and one of them was against the Northwestern in Evanston, Illinois. And a Chicago Bear scout came to the game, and that's how I got drafted. I mean, that was so lucky.
Well, certainly not too much luck. A lot of skill involved in that when you consider you could probably go out there and play today and lead the team in tackles with the shape you're in and the intensity you bring here.
I am in shape, as you know. Phenomenal.
Hey, I'm working on it. I've been in the gym here for the last.
I don't know if I want to go in no push-up contest, whatever. I'm in shape. I don't think I do.
Nobody does. Another guy I want to bring into this conversation, and you reference hanging out with him when you saw Steve Mongo McMichael at a signing here recently, is our guy Don the BEARMAN, who needs no introduction. Donnie, I apologize trying to get Waddle through and not keep him too long, but certainly want to make your presence felt as we move on to Doug Plank. How we doing tonight, BEARMAN?
Good. How you doing, Doggy?
Hey, Don. Great seeing you again.
Yeah, wearing your jersey.
Yes, of course. I love it.
Got the 4-6 on. That's an amazing story. You know, how Buddy Ryan gave the name to the 4-6 defense, you know, after your number, but it wasn't like, you know, for someone like me who wasn't around back then or wasn't old enough back then, didn't realize that he just assigned different defenses to every number, you know, and you just happened to get the one that revolutionized the sport in a big way. And that has to be a heck of an honor for you, Doug.
You know, really, and Don could probably, you know, because I've talked with him plenty of times about this. I would have liked to have gone to the Super Bowl for a lot of reasons. But you know what? If I had a choice between the 46 defense named after my jersey number or go to the Super Bowl, now this sounds crazy, but I'm happy with the first one, because you know there's a lot of guys that go to the Super Bowl every single year. There's about 80 of them on, you know, 40 on each team. There's only one guy in the history of the National Football League with the 46 defense named after him. And, you know, it's funny, you know, even after I left, I felt like a couple guys felt like, hey, Doug really didn't deserve to get, you know, that 46 defense. Well, I was the middle linebacker. I mean, and, you know, Buddy named all these different blitzes and defenses after players' numbers. And, you know, after he described all the responsibilities, he just walked up to that board and circled my number 3 times and said, I was in the middle of the defense. And he said, we're going to call this the 46 defense. And it immediately started ravaging chaos on offenses around the league.
Yeah, it certainly does. And it's legendary. It's a legacy that will live forever. And, you know, like we said, like Steve Mongo McMichael said in that video at Bears 100, you know, to live in infamy forever means the world. And I'm sure, obviously, it does for you, as you just said. You know, you and Don have such a special relationship, you know, and I think you guys are kindred spirits. You've touched on this before on our show, Doug. You know, your passion for this team is just as equal to Don's, you know, and in the way he prepares for a game, and the way he shows up in the stands every single home game since the early 80s, hasn't missed a home game. I don't think you'll ever meet a fan like Don or Paul the Road Warrior, who's right next to him here in this picture. You know, Doug, talk about your relationship with Don and, you know, what he means to you as a friend.
Well, you know what? Anytime, you know, I go back to Chicago now, and I do broadcasting for the last 10 years in the National Football League. It's a national radio group, and we do probably 1 or 2 games a year in the Bears in Soldier Field. And it just going to the stadium and seeing Don there with the jersey on, you know, before the game, after the game, man, it's hard to believe. It brings tears to your eyes. You know, all these tough guys, you know, they're playing in the league, but they're not so tough because, you know, you introduce them to someone that's like willing to wear your jersey at the games. Man, how many people do that? And, you know, that's why I just going to have a bond with Don the rest of my life, because, you know, what he's done for me is really, you know, unselfish. And, you know, I feel like I owe him so much as a result.
Oh, thank you so much, Doug. I don't know what to say with that, but I mean, it's the way I just don't want fans to not remember, you know, your history and so forth. You know, that's why I wear your number. I mean, just not for me, but to kind of basically put it out there. You know, there was this hard hitting, you know, strong safety, free safety that just ravaged, you know, that you were the monsters of the Midway, and the way you played. I don't want people to, you know, forget about you. And it's an honor that I wear your jersey and that you know, recognize me. So thank you so much, Doug, for everything.
Yeah, I mean, you guys epitomize the passion for Chicago Bears football that we all have for this team, but you guys lead the way in that, and we all follow your lead when it comes to that. You know, I want to bring in our guy Salim Sudarwala into the conversation, as we'll bring everybody in, and Johnny B will be back up, but want to try to keep it organized and introduce everybody properly. And this is Salim Sudarwala, a diehard Chicago sports fan, who also does a Chicago Bulls podcast called the Bulls Gold Podcast. But he asked me last week if he could come on the show next week, and I told him he could, and it just so happens it's one of the biggest shows I've ever done here at Braggs and Stands, and he's a good friend of mine on Twitter and a great supporter of what we do here at Braggs and the Stands. So why don't you give a little hello here to Doug Plank, Salim?
Doug, it's a pleasure being on with you. Yeah, I'm a big diehard Bears fan, and you did a lot for the team. You went out there and gave everything you had, so it's a pleasure to meet you. Oh, can you hear me?
You might be getting a little. Can you hear us, Doug? Can you hear us, Doug?
Is he on mute?
Testing, Doug. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear us, Douglas? Doug, can you hear us? So we're efforting it. We got to get your ears in. Can we hear you? Can you hear me, Doug? Here, we'll take you off. I'll text you, and then you can hop back on the screen. Running through some technical difficulties here, and we'll get Doug back on. And we'll get his thoughts here about Justin Fields, because he, of course, is an alum of Ohio State, and we definitely want to hear his thoughts here. I'm just gonna text him along, and we'll get it rocking and rolling. And I'm trying to get my words on this text. Sorry, everyone. A little technical difficulties, but this is live TV, and that's how it goes. Douglas, can you hear us now? Can you hear us? Testing. 1, 2, 3. You certainly look great, but he can't hear us. So here, Doug. Okay, you can hear us now, right? Can you hear us, Doug? Can you hear us?
I was back.
No, he's back.
He's back. We can hear you, but you can't hear us.
It's been breaking up the last few minutes.
Oh, no, you're fine, but you can hear us now? Huh. So I'm going to put him backstage, and I'm going to give him a ring, and then we'll just get it working like that. The last time he came on, he called me immediately after we had talked, and we aired his phone conversation on the air. So I'll just call him again, and we'll tell him what's up. Here, this is how it works.
Gentlemen.
Hey, Doug, how about you hop in or hop out of the studio and then come back in, because we can hear you, but it doesn't seem like you can hear us.
Okay, I can now.
Well, I know, but that's because we're on the phone. So hop out of the stream and then come right back in it, and it should work.
Okay, right back. Okay, cool.
All right. So there we are. This is live TV, and we appreciate everyone's patience as we effort Doug Plank coming back into the studio here.
I like what he said, though, about his comment about, having, the defense named after him instead of, comparing it to the Super Bowl, and how obviously he said 80 guys, it's 53 now. But, I don't know what it was, back in the day. But that's a very interesting way to look at it. I thought that was very unique. You hear about the 46 defense and all these legendary defenses, but that, Bears defense is still the one that everybody talks about.
Yeah.
The Legion of Doom had its day for a couple of years, but there is nobody, wearing a jersey like Bearman like that, and teaching generation after generation. When they see Bearman at the game, maybe they're a younger fan or they weren't around for that, and they say, 46, bro, like, why are you wearing 46? And then the whole story comes out. So I thought that was a very cool story that Doug shared with us.
100%. I mean, we're talking about a guy that laid the wood, to put it mildly, as Doug comes back into the stream, and we'll bring him into the conversation. Doug, can you hear us as we watch your epic highlights?
No, you're coming in loud and clear.
All right, good. No problem. Hey, this is how live TV works, and sometimes we got to roll with the punches, and that's what we're doing here at Braggs in the Stands, and we appreciate your patience and, of course, your time that you always give us here, as you're always so gracious. But, Doug, when you watch these highlights, what goes through your head when you watch yourself, putting the hits on some of these guys?
You know what? It was so much fun. I really, again, I was telling you guys, I didn't have much of a college career. I only played a few games. So I just kept hoping and wishing and wanting to play. game after game after game. And, the last game I played for Ohio State was against the Michigan game my senior year. And in that game, I was trying to blow up every person in the game. Every runner, every receiver. I was running full speed at them. I never broke down to try to make any tackles. I just tried running through people. And on one of the plays, I knocked a guy back 5 yards, but then he regained his balance and he ran in for a touchdown. And so I missed the tackle on that. That was one tackle in that game, but I had some great plays, forced fumbles, made an interception. And, Ohio State went to the Rose Bowl. And after the game was over, I'll never forget Woody Hayes walking up to me and he said, "Doug, you missed the tackle in the game and I can't trust you anymore. So you're going to be on the bench for the rest of your season." And I was literally in the Rose Bowl on the bench my whole game against USC thinking, you know what? I'm so sorry that it had to end this way, that this was the end of my football career. And what a blast to be drafted by the Bears less than 30 days later. And it was a dream come true.
100%. It's a dream come true having you on the show. And, you're efforting a little bit of service issues, but that's okay. We hear you loud and clear. And if anything happens, I'll let you know. But I want to bring everybody into the conversation as we roll with you, Doug. But I'll start it off and then I'll start kicking it around to these guys and let them fire away at the questions they have for you. But, you mentioned your days playing at Ohio State, and now here we are. We have one of the biggest Ohio State alums to ever come through that program. Justin Fields comes in here with a lot of swagger.
Man, what a suit.
We're in the Ohio State red, and it seems like we have a franchise quarterback. And you see the confidence he has. What are your thoughts here as Justin Fields enters the fold for the Chicago Bears, and how do you think he will fare here in the city of Chicago?
Well, let me begin by saying, okay, he went to Ohio State, I went to Ohio State, but I'm not a lapdog for Ohio State. I'm not telling you that he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He might be, because he certainly has all the skills and abilities, and he's tall. A lot of people said, man, he's a little quarterback. No, he's a big guy and he can run. And I think anytime the NFL, you can extend plays. That's what this whole thing is about: extending plays and getting one-on-one matchups down the field. I think he's going to do great. I mean, I've seen him in person play in Columbus when I was working, doing broadcasting. And, I've talked to other people, including his coaches, that have great respect for him. And, his work habits, he's coming from a pro-style offense. It's not like they're running the wishbone or anything like that. You can see even the last couple games of his career how athletic he was, and he's not afraid to throw the football down the field. So this is more about the guys on the line of scrimmage. Are they capable of holding out long enough for him to get that ball off? And the other thing I like about him, though, he is like a Mahomes, he's able to extend plays. And the longer that you can hold the ball and extend plays against a secondary, you're going to have huge success, because all those coverages all break down after like 5 to 10 seconds. And if he can continue to do that or get loose, I mean, this kid's athletic. And, he's not like anything we've seen in Chicago for a long time.
Yeah, well, we're very excited about it. No question. I mean, we just needed a directional change, and we got that in Justin Fields. And there's no guarantees of how he will do, but we certainly feel good about it. Finally finding a guy to lead us into this next chapter of Chicago Bears football. I'll start it off with you, Salim. What kind of questions you have for Doug? Go ahead and fire away, my man.
Hey, Doug, thanks for being on with us. Just was wondering, what are your thoughts on the Bears defense going into next year? Obviously, they lost a very key cornerback in Kyle Fuller, but they will be getting Eddie Goldman back. Do you think that they can maybe right the ship a little bit and be even get back into that top 5 maybe on the defensive end?
You know what? I don't know what you guys thought last year, but I thought their defense 2 years ago was really, really good. I thought last year's defense was just okay. They weren't pressuring anybody. They weren't dominating the line of scrimmage. There weren't as many plays downfield. And, defensive backs are only as good as the pass rush. And there was a lot of plays last year where the pass rush wasn't that great. And the guys down the field, they got exposed. Our defensive backs, Chicago Bears defensive backs, got exposed in a lot of games last year. They were used to having so much pressure and making jumping passes on receivers. And what happened was those quarterbacks didn't get the pressure. So they held on to the ball only another second or two, and it completely left open receivers downfield. So I just thought a couple of the games, that defense really looked bad. I'm not saying it's going to look bad next year. A lot of it has to do with, with what they put together. I'm familiar with the coach they picked up from Green Bay, Mike Pettin. He always believed in pressure defenses, but when you get pressure defenses, you got guys running around sometimes that don't know where to go. You look at that one play when they played the Buccaneers, and it was that play at the end of the first half. They were out there, trying to press trips formation that Tampa Bay was throwing at them, and there was confusion. And, that guy, Scotty Miller, ran down the sideline completely open. So I'm all for pressure. But if pressure isn't organized, if it doesn't come in an organized fashion, your defense is going to get exposed.
100%. Well said. Don, we'll let you chop in. Wasn't able to bring you into the Waddle stuff as much as I'd like because we wanted to be tight with Waddle because he's got to get up early to get to the ESPN 1000 studios. And I know you're no stranger to Doug Plank, obviously, but what questions do you have for him in regards to the draft and the future of this team on the field?
3-4 days, I've been talking to you over the past couple of months on, how, maybe the future of the Bears doesn't look too good after this past season, but it just seems like with this Justin Fields pick, things have changed immensely here. I mean, there is huge enthusiasm for the next couple of years. This could be a franchise quarterback. So, right now it looks like, Nagy and Pace, their jobs are going to be secure for probably, this season and next season. They booked up 5-year contract. So, what's your opinion on how to handle Fields? I mean, again, I think even though the Bears don't do too well this year, George and Ted aren't gonna launch him. Saying, well, you got a potential franchise quarterback. He needs time. So, in your opinion, Doug, how should we handle? I mean, any idea as far as starting him right away, let him sit a while?
I'll tell you what. To me, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's any time to waste. I mean, why would you want to get embarrassed your first 2 or 3 games? Sometimes the first 3 games of the season, it sets your sail, so to speak. If you're in a sailboat, it sets the sail where you're going the rest of the year. Some of the hardest things I've ever had to do was start slow and then trying to recover, trying to get wins and, get some momentum back. Man, when you lose that momentum, it's gone, whether it's in a game or in the season. So I would waste no time. I mean, I don't think the Bears' offense is any more intricate than the offense that he ran at Ohio State. And that's not disrespect to Matt Nagy. I'm just saying, you can only do so many things with receivers and a tight end. And, what I love about Justin is if things are all jammed up, this kid can move. He can run. And, I'm not saying that he was in the NFL last year, but I'll tell you what, places like Alabama and Ohio State, they come as close as you can get. That first year when I made the transition from Ohio State to the Bears, I go, hey, this isn't that bad. These guys are all the same size. So, it was rather easy making the transition. And, now you look at the offense he ran. Here's the other thing I like. He's not a dink and dunk offensive guy. He throws bombs down the field. There's one thing that defensive backs don't want to have happen. A bomb getting thrown over top of your head. And I would start every game and throw that ball 65 or 70 yards like he can throw it and just let everybody know, hey, listen, you guys better stay back, because I might run, but, I might just crank loose this bomb and it's going to be coming down the field 65 yards. So you better get your butt back there as fast as you can.
Right. Yeah.
Stuff and that's the kind of attitude we definitely want to see in Justin Fields. Like Tom Waddle said, the way Russell Wilson took the bull by the horns and took over that Seattle Seahawks team. Johnny B,
yes.
Our guy here, my good co-host and good friend here. Obviously you guys had your introduction, but what questions do you have, Johnny B, in regards to the draft and how it concerns the Bears, with Justin Fields.
I'll just add on to what Doug said. And, like a lot of people think that Justin Fields is small, and he's not small at all. He's pushing 6'3". I don't know if he's kind of there. Mahomes is a similar side. They had a lot of things bad about Mahomes, like he's undisciplined, his hands are small. Obviously, the dude can throw the ball 80 yards in the air. But what I like about Justin Fields, which is very similar to Mahomes, is that he can extend the plays like Doug said. And Justin Fields ran for 383 yards last year during the season and 5 touchdowns. So he is going to chuck that ball down the field. He is going to take deep shots. Like Doug said, they don't want to see that happening as DBs. But you know what? He can tuck it and run it if he needs to too. And I like that he's not looking to run first necessarily like a Lamar, or something like that. But he has the ability to extend the plays. And if it breaks down, he can take it to the house. We've seen Mahomes do it, pass first, option to run if necessary. I think Justin Fields is very similar in a lot of ways. And, big game experience, like Doug said. I agree with a lot of the stuff he's saying. Now it's a matter of getting the kid in there at the right time, with the right offensive line, getting some protection, which the Bears haven't had. And we'll see what the kid can do. I mean, I thought I agree with Tom when Tom was on. I had him as the second best or the 1B quarterback because no one's going to pass on Trevor Lawrence because they don't want to be the team that passed on him. But for me, I thought Justin Fields was the second best, if not, 1A and 1B with Trevor Lawrence.
I'm sorry, I had everybody muted so we could hear everything clearly, but I completely agree with you, Johnny, and I don't think there's any excuse for teams like the Lions and the Panthers and the Broncos to pass on a guy like Justin Fields, or even the Jets for that matter, who chose a different quarterback, but at least they chose a quarterback for the teams that didn't, to not take Justin Fields when your quarterback situation hasn't necessarily been solved is reckless in this day and age in football. But also you mentioned the offensive line improvement. So I wanted to go to that with you, Doug, because there's a guy on this team that seems like he's going to bring the kind of mentality that you brought to the football field that a guy like Olin Kreutz brought to this football field, and that's Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State. This is a big dude with a big stature, and he worked his way up the charts. He might have fallen a little bit on the board. There were certainly people that thought the Bears could take him at 20. Then we trade up to 11 to get Fields, and then lo and behold, we trade up again in the second round to 39, and there's Justin Fields ready to be taken. And it's like a perfect storm for the Bears to be able to not only get a franchise quarterback, but maybe possibly a franchise tackle or even a left tackle. As my guys over the Tape Never Lies Network, they're adamant that he's going to be ready to play right away as a left tackle. I want to play this video for you of Tevin Jenkins talking about his responsibility on this team and get your reaction to it, Doug, because I know you're going to enjoy it.
Sorry.
Okay. What pride do you take in keeping your quarterback clean?
Oh, that's the number one important thing to me. I'm about to say I don't even care about like anything else to me. Like the number one thing to me, I've ever grew up my whole life, been offensive lineman my whole life, defensive end, offensive lineman, didn't care about anything else. Number one thing I've always learned is you keep your quarterback clean and you always keep him upright, no matter what you have to do, be dirty, throw, hold, whatever it is, what you got to do. If anybody hits my quarterback after the play, that's my problem and not his. And that's how I want to carry myself. And that's what I want to do. And that's the man I have to be.
How about that, Doug? That certainly seems like a player with a new attitude on this team. What are your thoughts of Tevin Jenkins and what he can bring to this team?
Well, you know what? Anybody with that kind of an attitude and those kind of responses, I first think of Steve McMichael. He could be the Steve McMichael on the offense. And you know what? In just my experience in the National Football League, there was more personalities on the defensive side of the football versus the offense, especially on the line of scrimmage. I mean, we had all kind of characters, and I just think that he comes with an attitude. And you know what? Here I love about attitudes on football teams. It's so close. You're right next to each other every single play, and your attitude and your demeanor, it influences everybody around you, even on defense. Whether it being a safety, this guy, I think he's just waiting for somebody to block, run over, bulldoze, whatever you want to call it. And we'll see how good he is on pass blocking. But no, I think, that line of scrimmage, as I said before, the further you get away from the ball, the more and more important that line of scrimmage is. I became a better safety when we got Dan Hampton and guys like that on the line of scrimmage. And, the same thing is true on offense. When a guy can sit back there like Justin Fields, this dude's got a strong arm. He can throw the ball. Yeah, he can run, but, he can do a lot of things. So he's such a threat to the defense. But if you allow him to just stand back in that pocket and throw it, you look at some of those games in college. I know it's college and it's just, the guys aren't the same. But, he has a great attitude, Fields, and I think he's going to really take advantage of a guy like this on the line.
I continue to do the mute thing, and then I'm doing a lot of juggling here on Braggs and Stands. But, I completely agree, to be able to have these guys come in, this offensive line upgrades or, potential upgrades, because they also got Larry Borum later in the draft from Missouri. And it just, in an ideal scenario, these guys are your left and right tackles of the future. You've got the interior with Sam Mustipher potentially at center, and then James Daniels and Cody Whitehair at guard. Maybe Matt Nagy will have a bit of a head start when it comes to identifying who should be on the offensive line, because one of my biggest concerns with Matt Nagy over the last couple of years is how long into the season it took him to identify who should be on his offensive line. And I feel like he's got a little bit of a head start this year as to an idea of what that is.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Doug.
I totally agree with that. And I think Matt will. I think Matt will definitely, I think he'll be a better coach. He's still a young coach and he's still learning. So I definitely think Matt will learn from what he's been up against the last few years.
100%. Now, you mentioned Matt learning, and I've joked with my guy, Draft Dr. Phil Filatoshin. They're learning between Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, but it's been a long learning curve. How confident are you that Matt Nagy will be able to overcome some of his offensive play calling woes? Is a guy like Justin Fields going to be able to solve all those problems where everything opens up and we see a whole new coach this year, just like we kind of seen a whole new GM in this draft? It feels like, are we going to see a new coach that plays to his players' strengths and runs a consistent offense?
I mean, I hope so, and I don't mean to be hogging the microphone here, so you guys are certainly welcome to chirp in. But
no, you're the guest of honor.
Okay, you're in the Chicago Bears. Okay, this is the Central Division, whatever you want to call it this year. What year would you pick to want to go play against Green Bay, the Lions? You know what I'm saying? This is the year to do that, because we don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to be, but it sounds like that's going downhill every day. They're calling each other names and all this kind of stuff. And,
we love it.
So Green Bay, the Vikings, I mean, you would want to be in this division, regardless of what else happened. It didn't matter who you drafted. You would want to be in that conference. I think the Bears, that's going to be, they're going to.
What do you think about this guy getting ready to leave the Green Bay Packers to host Jeopardy? Did you ever think that would be a statement that you could make as a Bears fan?
Well, from one mysterious guy to another, they're on the show, nobody knowing any of the answers except him. And, I just think Aaron Rodgers, just watching him as a broadcaster the last couple of years, I think he was elevating himself from player to coach to owner to whatever, the Hall of Fame in Green Bay, whatever it was. I just think he lost touch with the ordinary common player on that team. Now, I'm not saying he's not a great player. He's an awesome player, a great player. But you know what? Everything, is in appearance. And anybody on television could see sometimes he was very aloof. He came to the sidelines, didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to talk to the coach, players, receivers, nobody. And that reminds me of another quarterback we had in Chicago a few years ago that came over and sat on the bench and said, "Hey, I don't want anybody to talk to me till I have to go back in." And you saw how that worked out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, guys like Devin Hester guys like Devin Hester, who's going to the Hall of Fame next year, didn't appreciate that aloofness. And you're right, it takes not only talent, but to be a leader. And Mitch understood how to be a leader, but didn't quite necessarily have all the talent that you need to truly follow through. Now, you mentioned, Doug, you're an announcer, and you guys all feel free to chop in, after I get through on this video, but you mentioned you're an announcer, and I was going to play this for Tommy Waddle because he's one of the Ducks involved here, but my guy Johnny B, my co-host, is a man that wears many hats, diehard Chiefs fan, goes to every game. He's a gambling connoisseur on this show, gives away his picks, but he's also started this duck race phenomenon where he races Kansas City Chief ducks, and then whoever wins, he gives away these great prizes. And you're an announcer, Doug. You work in the booth. I want to hear your opinion of Johnny B's announcing prowess after you see this video. So here it is. This is Johnny B in his infamous duck races.
Johnny B side here, bear down edition of duck races. Well, bear weather is finally upon us here. Snowy and cold, just in time to try to make the playoffs. Speaking of trying to make the playoffs, Braggs in the stands asked George Kittle to help us out and get a victory there. And he just did just that. And we said we would donate some money to a charity of his choice to be did. And he picked the University of Iowa Stead Family Hospital. So what we're going to do here is a duck race. The 11 finalists are going to get to go with the duck. And the winner of that duck, whoever crosses the finish flag first, gets the Peanut Tillman autographed jersey. A lot on the line here. Let's take a look at the duck, starting with George Kittle. He's the only bear in there. It's McMahon, the punky QB, Hester, Peanut Tillman, Sweetness, Gale Sayers, Dick Butkus, the coach, 54 Brian, 99 Danimal, and 87 Greg's boy Tommy Waddle. Ducks line up. Ducks line up. First flag. First duck under the flag wins the jersey. A lot on the stakes at duck races, and they're off, bear down, and it's Danimal in the lead, followed by the coach. A lot on the line here at duck races as the winner gets a Peanut Tillman Peanut Punch jersey. It's Danimal in a runaway right now. He's looking good, but here comes the coach with a little wind in his mouth. And now here comes Peanut Tillman as they come to Dead Ducks curve. Iceberg dead ahead. Iceberg dead ahead. It's Peanut Tillman, and he's looking good as he goes to the Dead Ducks curve. He's around Dead Ducks curve. It's Peanut Tillman. Could he possibly do it? And it's Peanut Tillman putting on a show. Peanut Tillman comes through with the peanut punch. And the guy who is it? He's winning the jersey. And Iowa, University of Iowa, Stead Family Hospital gets the money. Woo! Happy New Year.
And there it is, Doug. Johnny B's infamous duck races. We talk about a lot of passion on this show, and I know you were popping in and out there, but what do you think of Johnny B's announcing prowess? It's kind of like a horse race announcer.
Yeah, you can tell it's all natural. He's got it deep down inside, and he's always had it since birth. So he just needed an opportunity to get in front of the mic.
He was born to do it.
I've never seen anybody pull the ducks off. That was pretty good.
Yeah, well, Johnny B is a special man, and he's never short of surprises. And
sometimes I do some writing for the duck races for the Chiefs. I didn't do any writing for that race. We kind of came together with some of the ducks, and that was just a freestyle. Most of my races are on one take, and the Peanut Tillman jersey was on the line, and of course he did not disappoint. Some of the duck races fans were hoping for a closer race, but when destiny looks you in the eye, sometimes you just ride it to victory lane, and that's just the way it was in that race.
I had to show you that, Doug, to try to loosen things up here. But go ahead, guys. I've been doing all the talking.
Yeah.
I'll hop backstage, and whoever wants to hop in, fire away.
I was just saying that looked like you did that in like one breath. That's really impressive.
Oh, I appreciate that. Like I started a year ago with the pandemic. I saw Big Cat do the magnetic horse race, and I said, he's like cursing and stuff like that. Whatever, that's fine. That's not my thing. I said, I'm going to do something fun. I started because we had just won the Super Bowl in Kansas City, so I did a Chiefs version. And then when I came on the show and started doing Johnny B for 3, we did some bear stuff for some charity and gave away some prizes. So I was very terrible, I thought, in the beginning, but it just took a little quick. So I appreciate that. We put a lot of work into it, and it's a lot of fun.
Hey, I got something to ask your opinion of, you guys. That's kind of been bothering me here the last couple of days. So on Friday, I was listening to ESPN radio at the kind of the noon hour, where usually Mike Greenberg does it. Like, he was hosting the draft, so they had a fill-in, and this guy, all I know was his first name was Bob, but it's national ESPN radio. And so he was talking about the draft from Thursday night, and he was mentioning about the Giants. I guess maybe he's from the East Coast, so he was big on the Giants. He was saying how great a trade the Giants made with the Bears. Basically, everybody's been giving the Bears trade like they're picking A++. But he was saying, get this, that the Giants made such a great trade because they have the Bears' #1 pick next year. And this clown is claiming that #1 pick by the Giants will be in the top 5 or #1 next season, next draft. So this guy is claiming the Bears are going to have the 5th worst record.
First of all, I remember when Daniel Jones was running for the touchdown all alone and he fell down. So that's the first thing I'm going to open with from last year's football season. So right there, that's what you're doing. They're always going to twist it like that. They're going to say they got the better end of the deal. I'm sure they're going to say that to make themselves feel better. As kind of an outsider in NFL, that studies the NFL myself, I thought the Bears got a steal in that draft. You can't look at what's going to happen next year because they're going to develop Fields. I don't think it'll be a top 5 pick, but I think the Bears got the better of that draft, no doubt.
So, Bearman, you also had, me pull a couple pictures here, and I know you had a question ready for Doug. What was that exactly?
Okay, so Doug, Doug maybe knows I actually buy a lot of your photographs on eBay, from the paper. I remember when I gave you that one of your first interception against the Eagles there years ago?
Yeah, that was my last interception too, Don.
No. But anyhow,
no. Listen,
I just bought one today. I had it in my cart for for a week or two, but I finally purchased it. But so this picture was taken by the Chicago Tribune. Your very first game, September 21st, 1975. Remember this? Bert Jones, they said, ran for 16 yards on a busted play. But
oh yeah,
you're the one who upended him, and the phone, I guess, spun him around. But I mean, you remember that play?
Yeah, I did. I remember Bert Jones because I was a fan of his, in college. I watched him a lot. He was a big star in Baltimore, at the time, and had a lot of fans. Was a good quarterback. I mean, he moved the offense. They put up yards, but he took off from the huddle one time, or the pocket, and I came out of coverage. I had a man coverage, and my man was actually just loafing around. I knew once he crossed the line of scrimmage, I just came up as fast as I could, Don, and hit him right below the knees, and he did a 360 on me. He was limping off the field after that. But, it's like sometimes you only get a chance to hit these guys once or twice. Hey, you got to make it count. You got to make it so that, they don't ever want to run there again. That memory is going to be with them the rest of their life.
I love it, Doug. I love it. I'm glad I bought that picture.
So who else has got one?
And really, when I couldn't believe that he kept coming at me. Normally, when you run full speed at people, they try to duck and go to the left or the right or get down. I mean, he just kept coming. So I really, really appreciated that in him. But, at the last second, just trying to go down. And when you're running really fast, here's another thing I got to tell you. It's hard to hold your hands out to your sides when you're running. Who does that? Who runs full speed and then has their hands out to the side like they're going to try to tackle somebody? If he runs and just off your left or right side, he's going to rip your arm off. So I was just always just beeline right for his middle of his stomach, or right below his belt, and hit him so hard, he didn't want to get back up. And, that he was limping back to the huddle. And, don't come running down here again because you're going to get the same thing.
I'll tell you what, this guy was killing people like that out there. I mean, look at you. You've barely aged, Doug. Look at this, man. You're still that young guy with the long hair, the long Goldilocks hair. What was it like for you, being on football cards? As a kid, I collected cards. Was it cool for you to see that? And
it really was. Honestly, I mean, it was a dream come true. I was like everybody else. I had football cards, baseball cards. We used to play games. I remember when I was growing up, 8, 9, 10 years old, and whatever box of cards you had, we would do flip-offs with other guys. So in other words, if you had 100 cards and you put down 80 that were heads up and 20 were tails, the guy had to match whatever you put down. So the object was to try to put down as many face cards as possible. So that's what we kept all these cards for. And we played this game every single day, back and forth. And I had boxes and boxes and boxes of cards because I was really good at determining, when I put that thing down out of my hand, it was going to be a heads. And it was very hard for them to match, 50 heads, cards. So, no, it was, I first saw that first card, I couldn't believe it. It was a dream come true. I'm serious. I get the Chicago Bears, and I only played 5 games at Ohio State, and now I'm starting the first game of the year. It's unbelievable. I'm like waking up every morning pinching myself going, is this real? Am I in a dream? Am I in a motel somewhere in Ohio and not in Chicago? No, it was unbelievable. And, so I think just making the team, being on the team, and, being able to play every game and turn it loose. And it was such a thrill.
Well, we have a guy in the chat, and I don't think this was a diss at you. I think he's trying to bounce off of what you were saying. He said Doug is blessed because he was the worst at. I mean, I don't agree with this because I see your workout prowess, but he's saying that you weren't necessarily the most athletic guy on the team, but you got the job done in that way, and that was your blessing.
Well, you know what? And I hear that, because, when you're just watching somebody plow into somebody else, what skills does that take? Well, you can't have a brain because a brain is going to tell you to stop or go left or go right. Avoid this collision. You know what? I was able to control my mind, and I ran into more people that other people wouldn't have. I was a high school quarterback. I could throw the ball 70 yards. I challenge you, the first interception I had was the second game my rookie year against Philadelphia, and I had to run across the field and intercept the ball from Roman Gabriel before it went out of bounds. You tell me making that play that you're not an athlete.
Right.
I had a sprint over there. It was right by the sidelines, full extension. I caught the ball. Here's my point. Okay. You can judge whether I was a good athlete or not, but if somebody came in my area, I'm sorry, they are not going to catch the ball. You're not going to see me trying to go get an interception and missing it, and the guy catching it and run for a touchdown. That never happened when I was on the field. That guy was going down. And it used to be so satisfying to hit somebody across the throat or chest or whatever and just hear the wind coming out of his lungs as he was, flying through the air. And I don't know, I always enjoyed it. It was an enjoyment.
What was your quote the first time I ever had you on a show? You said, hitting a lineman is like hitting an ice cream truck.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I ran into a few guys. I'll tell you what, Earl Campbell, wow. I think I told you stories. He knocked out Steve Foley at safety from Denver Broncos the week before, and Buddy Ryan said we were all chickens. And I said, okay, buddy, we'll see what happens. And I knew he had metal thigh pads. Don't ask me why he was allowed to wear them, but I figured out where to hit him, and it was right between the thigh pads, up about 5 inches. And there were some things in that little area that you don't want to get hit. And I hit him as hard as I could. Now, he still had 200 yards, but he was out. He was out for several minutes, and he was limping off the field. I'll tell you that he was waddling. He was waddling off the field. So I knew I hit the target.
Waddle, no pun intended, with Tommy Waddle coming on this show. But so I certainly think maybe our guy Dimitri in the chat a little bit overstated on your athletic prowess when you consider all the grit and determination you bring on the field. But also, as you mentioned, you're a quarterback, and the way you could cover so much ground on the field. I think there's a lot to be learned as far as what you brought to the table and how maybe some athletic ability is understated when it doesn't flash on the screen for some. I was going through some of your old – oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, 3 years I led the team in tackles. Now, how are you a bad athlete and you're the free safety and 3 years you lead the team in tackles? I mean, how does that happen?
It doesn't.
After Gary got there, he got a lot of the attention too because you know what? There weren't a lot of teams running up the middle on us. You know why? Because I was ready, either Mike Singletary or myself. Hey, listen, we were going to KO some guys. So, I just, it's okay though.
This isn't a bad athlete right here. I mean, Dimitri in the chat talking smack, but I doubt he's bicep and curls of 45-pound weights. I know my ass isn't. So, I think that certainly is something we all could learn and you show us the ropes in that way. I was digging through some of your pictures on Facebook, Doug, and I came across this one that you shared. What's the story behind this one and what it means to you when you see it?
Okay, yeah, let me see. It's it hasn't hit the screen yet. It's not my 25 jersey, is it? When I first got there, I had 25 for 2 weeks, and we traded for an all-pro receiver from the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ron Shank.
No, this is actually
my shirt.
This is actually you dropping back as the Raiders quarterback is getting ready to throw.
Okay, I'm not sure which play that might be.
Okay. Oh, no problem. Hey, I was doing some research and digging through some different photos, and I always like to learn the history behind what you did for the Chicago Bears because it was before my time, and you've certainly taught me so much in the 3 interviews we've done about the history of the Chicago Bears and made me appreciate even more so than I am already before about being a Bears fan that I am. And I know the rest of us here feel the same way. What else do you guys got here? I don't want to take too much more of Doug's time. I want him to get to bed. He's 2 hours behind us, so it's a little earlier for him, but I certainly don't want to take up too much. I don't want to take up too much here.
Greg, put that picture back up of Rodgers from Jeopardy. I got to ask Doug something.
Okay, we'll pull the Rodgers picture. I mean, it is one of my favorite pictures.
Just for a second. All right. All right, now you can take it down. I just want everybody to see it.
No, go ahead. Keep talking.
I mean, I want to see Doug. I don't want to see Rodgers anymore.
I see. You got
I mean, is anybody taking that guy at Jeopardy over Doug Plank in a push-up contest? I am not. I'm taking Doug, that guy that said about athleticism. What do you want? You want an athlete or you want a football player, my man? You want a football player, and that's what Doug was. Like he said, he led the team in tackles. Your receivers didn't want to come over the middle. He's in the right position at the right time. He's laying the wood. He's taking the punishment too. So what is an athlete? Someone that can just run? I know a lot of guys that are athletes, but you want a football player, and that's what you get with Doug.
Rodgers can't even down a beer.
I think another thing is just the 46 defense. I was a middle linebacker. I mean, I was taking on guards and tackles, playing the middle linebacker position. So
you were Cam Chancellor before Cam Chancellor.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, I had to be strong. I mean, there's no reason. I was in there weightlifting for a reason. I mean, I was taking on guards, pulling guards. And, the one nice thing about it was, I could anticipate. I really did a good job of understanding, looking at linemen. And I could tell what direction they were, whether they were going to have a run or a pass. And even if they were going to pull on plays, I could see the way they were lined up and they get down in their stance, they give it away. And you watch those end zone cameras over and over and over again. It's amazing. I never told anybody this, but that's what allowed me to play middle linebacker because I already knew what the play was going to be before it happened.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a whole new era of quarterback play and talking about athletes on the football field. And now we have a quarterback in the house that ran a 4.44, as Ryan Pace said. This guy's toughness scale is on a 11 of a scale of 1 to 10. And oh, by the way, he runs a 4.44, which he is only one of 5 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL to run better than a 4.5 and he's on our Chicago Bears. Now, can you believe the evolution of the NFL and watching the way the quarterback position has evolved, through all the different athletic quarterbacks, from Michael Vick is one of the first ones that comes to mind. And now down the line with all these different quarterbacks coming in and Lamar Jackson, wreaking havoc on the league a couple of years ago. What are your thoughts with the way the quarterback position has completely evolved? And now you kind of have to be a dual threat type quarterback with the run and the pass.
Well, I think it's just the evolution of the National Football League, and I think it's all good. It's very entertaining. I mean, think about fans sitting up in the stands. Chicago Bear, 1975. We're winning 7-6. That was a thrilling game back then. Now it's scoring. It's, and the rules have changed. The receivers are allowed to run more patterns. They're not going to get hit as often. There's a reason why the Falcons were number one defense in 1977, because before they threw the ball, you were allowed to go downfield and hit all the receivers. And what the Falcons figured out was, hey, listen, if these guys come down here 10 yards and the ball isn't in the air, we're going to just lay them on the ground. We're just going to smash them. And the linebackers went out to curl zones. So my point is the NFL has got more and more and more high scoring. So why wouldn't you want to have the quarterback that has everything? He can run, he can pass, he can throw the ball deep down the field. He's smart. He's not egotistic. Justin Fields is a very calm, very subdued individual, and he's smart, and he stays in the pocket as long as he has to until he has to run. And I just think he's going to be a great choice for the Chicago Bears, and I just hope the team rallies around him.
Oh, I have a good feeling they're going to, the way the fan base is rallying around each other. Normally, Bears fans are clashing, arguing about the quarterback, Jay Cutler and Mitch Trubisky. And now it's like we've all come together in rejoice of Justin Fields. And we've certainly been coming together tonight and enjoying what you brought to the table. We got Chubbs82 in the chat, and he had to say, and I thought these were really powerful words, Doug Plank is immortal. Buddy Ryan immortalized him with the 4-6 defense for a reason. And just like his playing days, it's on full display tonight. And I completely echo what Chubbs82 is saying. Every time you come on this show, Doug, you bring intensity and a passion. And, for all of us here, Bearman, Salim, Johnny B, and I, we pride ourselves on being very passionate sports fans and bringing the intensity when we're doing our thing, whether it's in the stands or on the podcast. But you certainly are inspirational in the way you carry yourself even to this day.
Well, thank you. I mean, listen, I'm not saying I'm great. I wasn't great. I got drafted.
Oh, no, you're great.
I don't have to defend anything. I was a 291st player picked. And, it's like, there's a lot of guys in the draft or not picked in the draft, but they came to the NFL and they were great players. But how many of them ever sat on the bench in college and then came to the NFL and actually had a better career? I've never met anybody. There's been plenty of guys drafted late like me or, that didn't get drafted, but they were all starters on their teams. So that's why I said this was like a dream. I'm serious. Every single day I get up, I go, really? I'm a Chicago Bear? You got to be kidding. People are calling me all the time from Ohio going, hey, Doug, we don't get it. You couldn't even start for Ohio State. Now you're starting for the Chicago Bears. I said, you know what? Somebody gave me a chance here. Somebody gave me a chance to get out that field and really play and give me an opportunity to show what I could do. And, that was it. And I really appreciate, the opportunity and especially playing here in Chicago because, it's a Midwestern location, and it worked out perfect, for the connection with Ohio State.
Certainly did, and we're happy it did, no doubt, here in Chicago Bears lore. Now we have a new Ohio State alum that we're hoping has the same kind of success and legacy that you've carried here in Chicago. Before we cut you loose, anybody here, Don, Salim, Johnny B, do you got any final words or thoughts you have for Doug Plank? Certainly been so gracious with his time, and we appreciate every second of it. Go ahead, guys.
Well, I guess I would.
Go ahead, Salim.
Sorry, I would just say, who dropped the ball in Ohio that they didn't let you play more than 5 games? I guess that would be the original question.
I'll tell you what. I got hurt my first year. I think I told you the first day I tore ligaments, 2 ligaments. And so I had freshman, I had surgery. I was out. I came back my sophomore year, and I didn't know it, but there was a kid behind me who was a freshman. His name was Tim Fox. He played in the NFL for 12 years. He was a first-round draft choice from the New England Patriots. Tim could catch a ball like he did on some interceptions, run like 5 yards, and then jump in the air and do a complete flip and land on his feet again. And he would keep running. So he was a totally different guy than I was, but he was a first-round draft pick. So that's who I played behind. So I wasn't embarrassed. I mean, and we never lost the home game. We went to 3 Rose Bowls. I mean, I wasn't on a bad team. It's just that I never got a chance to play. Only in that game against Northwestern my senior year, and Chicago Bear was at the game and saw me make almost all the tackles on kickoff. And then I played defense that day and forced a couple fumbles, and the rest was history. I'm drafted in the 12th round in 291. And but you know what? I don't feel bad. Rowan Harper was drafted in the 17th round, and he was another starter that year at fullback, blocking for Walter Payton. So
everything happens for a reason.
Career. Yes, you're exactly right. It does. It really does.
And that's not luck, Doug. That's not luck. That was you getting on the field at the right time, and then your passion, and that's your destiny, and you chose to take destiny by the horns. And like I said, you wrestled it down to the ground, and you never looked back.
You're right.
Well, hey, Doug, wasn't that Michigan game that put you guys into the Rose Bowl, right?
Yeah, you know what? I had some goal line stands. Right. I had some goal line stands in that game.
And the media guy, and even doing that, so Woody Hayes wouldn't let you play the Rose Bowl game?
Well, I'll tell you what. Don, I missed one tackle in the game in the first quarter. There was a little running back that came out of the backfield, and I just smashed him and knocked him back 5 yards, but he stayed on his feet. So I didn't think much of it. I mean, I missed the tackle, but, we ended up winning the game. And this next practice after that game, Don, Woody Hayes and our defensive coordinator walk up and said, "Doug, you missed the tackle in that game, one tackle, and we can't trust you anymore. So we're going to sit you on the bench, and you're going to watch the game from the sidelines." And then they walked away. And you know what? I got to tell you, I thought that was my last game. I was going to be sitting on the bench, running down on a kickoff, and that was going to be it. So you can imagine my surprise, Don, in January. That's when the draft was held back in January. And Bill McGrain, one of the officials from the Chicago Bears, called me and said, "Doug, the Chicago Bears just drafted you." I go, "You got to be kidding me." Because they had pro day at Ohio State. I never went to a pro day. I never was invited. Nobody ever invited me to go to run, catch, pass, whatever. And why would I ever think I was going to get drafted? So it was a shock.
Yeah.
Well, everything happens for a reason, and certainly glad your path ended the way it did here in the city of Chicago, and you will always be immortalized along with the rest of the all-time great Bears, and there's so many of them. And I mean, just like the columns in Soldier Field, you're a pillar of the Chicago Bears organization, and we will, I mean, truly, and we will always appreciate what you've done here at Brags in the Stands. As Douglas takes off, maybe he'll pop back in. If not, we truly appreciate his time. As Chubbs was saying earlier, I'm like that guy that takes 25 minutes to say goodbye to people, because that's just who I am. I don't know how.
That is a Brags tradition like another.
Yes. I think I learned it from my mom growing up. We'd be halfway out the door of some friend's house, and she'd be saying goodbye for 35 minutes. And that was always, I think that's where I learned it. As Doug pops back in, as we give our official goodbye to you for the night, Doug. Again, we really appreciate all your time and efforting through some of the technical difficulties and everything else. We appreciate your patience with all of that. And truly to share the stage with you and Tom Waddle tonight is a thrill that I will always cherish and remember and tell my kids. And hey, Addie was on the show too. So a lot of fun tonight, a lot of fun insight. It's an exciting time again to be a Chicago Bears fan. It's a new era here in the city of Chicago. Ohio State's done us well with you, Doug, and now we got Justin Fields to lead us the way in the new generation of the Chicago Bears. So certainly want to bring you on as we get into the season and let things unfold a little bit, but wanted to bring you on to get your reaction to the draft, being that you're not only a former Chicago Bear great, but also an Ohio State alum. You certainly have a lot to add to the conversation. So again, thank you for everything from Salim to Don and Johnny B. I know we all appreciate it immensely, and we'll let you get back to your life, and we'll chop it up with you here real soon, Doug.
Thank you.
Thanks,
again.
guys. Yeah, it's going to be here before you know it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot.
I like that.
Yes.
Bear down. Can we get a bear down, Doug Plank?
Yes. This is Doug Plank, former safety. I say former for every 10 years. Let's bear down Chicago Bears.
All day long. All right, Doug. We'll take it easy. We'll talk to you soon. And stay safe out there, and we'll catch up with you. Hopefully I can meet you in person one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Don. We'll see you.
See you.
All right.
Take care.
That is Douglas Plank, and that was a hell of an interview. Once again with Doug. He always brings the fire and the passion, and certainly knows short.
It's true grit. I love it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I appreciate you guys kind of bearing with me through all this. It's a little bit of a juggling act, trying to do all the different things that we prep for and doing the cameras and changing the guests in and out. And then we had a little technical issues, but I think it all went pretty smoothly, all things considered. And I appreciate you guys chipping in here tonight. And, we've got some different things that I have. And if you've got any thoughts on the second round or the later picks in the draft, you certainly, if you guys have any thoughts on those, feel free to fire away. We don't have to jet right this second. This 2021 draft class certainly seems like Ryan Pace, and especially when the Bears are good, I can find a way to see every player becoming a star. But who are out of these players, any of these guys got your ears perked up outside of Justin Fields and Tevin Jenkins? Whoever wants to start, go ahead and fire away.
Well, first of all, I'll just say that, you look for value down the road. You do the moves to get your two guys that you wanted to get. So for me, it's already a successful draft. You got the kid out of Mizzou that you hope works out, and he can be, if not anything, at least a good, backup piece to add depth to the offensive line. And then you're just hoping maybe one or more of these other guys hits. It's already a successful draft. And you never know what you're going to get down the road, whether they're drafted in the 4th round, the 5th round, or even undrafted free agents. So you hope after the top 2 big guys hit that one of these other guys hits, if not a superstar, which is, a little bit of a longer shot, just added depth down the road.
And Pace has had trouble hitting in the first couple rounds, which it seems like he has this year. And he's normally, his bread and butter is later. In the later rounds, last year he was able to get Darnell Mooney in the 5th round. And this year, I'm all about the skill position guys. In the 6th round at pick 221, he gets Daz Newsome from North Carolina, and I certainly think he's going to push for a roster spot with the guys like Riley Ridley and Javon Wims. And we all are curious. Salim's curious with the Anthony Miller situation. Right. Salim, what do you think of this guy, Daz Newsome, coming in? Do you think he can make an impact the way Darnell Mooney did last year?
It'll be interesting. I don't know a lot about him. I guess he'll probably be competing with a guy like Anthony Miller. I would assume when they get into, I don't know if they were planning to have like OTAs. I can't remember if that was happening, but obviously going to training camp, he's going to be in direct competition with some of these guys that maybe might be on the fringe, maybe a guy like Javon Wims, all these guys that he might be competing with. So that's what my thought process is right now, that they'll be picking to stick with one of those guys as far as who makes the final cut.
First of all,
I know you're definitely keyed in and you follow the college level and the pro level closely. Is there any guy that has your ears perked up? They got the running back from and very quickly, just like the last time, before we cut you off, but Doug Plank is calling again, just like he did for the last interview. So we'll share along his second passionate. Hello, Doug. How are you doing, bud? Long time no talk.
One last step. I power cleaned 100-pound dumbbells 23 times. And I challenge anybody. I've never met a football player on our team or anybody else's that could do that.
Power cleaned how much? 21 times?
100?
100-pound dumbbells 23 times.
All right. I'm going to the gym tomorrow.
Great, baby.
I don't even think I could get one of those, Doug.
Still competing, baby. Let's go.
You throw them off your shoulder, and then you do 1, 2, 3. And the hardest part is holding on to the dumbbells because your fingers become exhausted after 3 or 4.
I got to go to Vegas.
Hold on to these suckers. That's why I didn't miss many tackles. When I grabbed somebody, I was used to those 100-pound dumbbells, and now I had a death grip. And they would drag me down the field sometimes, but I didn't miss many tackles.
Well, we have your picture because we're still live, and we have your picture pulled up, and I was sharing this conversation along with the audience because this is 2 times in a row now where we finished, and then you called back because you're still so fired up, and that's what I love about you, Doug. And Johnny B loves to go to Vegas. He's a big gambling guy, and he said that the next time you're in Vegas, he wants to go with you because you guys, we're all, I feel like, kindred spirits. Obviously, Don the Bearman and Salim, but Johnny B is a guy that brings a lot of passion and intensity too. And if you're ever in Vegas, you need to let us know, and Johnny B will fly out and meet you there so he can break bread with you because I'm telling you, you guys would get along splendidly.
You need to tell Doug he needs to be at the Vegas.
That often, but I do get up there a couple times a year, and I'd be glad to call you guys and let you know when I'm up there.
Let's do it.
I wish the best for the Bears this year. I think Justin Fields is the real deal. I worry about that defensive, messaging, because I think, it's one thing to be aggressive. That's good. But you know what? You can't just turn people loose, and that Green Bay game, they were just turning guys loose. And, it doesn't matter how great the players are. They have to have a scheme, and it's more than just being aggressive every play. Everybody has to be in their place. And so I don't know. We'll find out. It's going to be an interesting year. I think offensively they're going to do well. I don't know defense.
And we got Bear Truth 9 in the chat, and he wants to know, the one of the workouts people do nowadays is planking, and you obviously your last name is Plank. How long can Doug Plank plank?
That's a good question. I haven't tried that for a long time. I do about 150 sit-ups a day. I don't do the 100-pound dumbbells now. I do like lighter ones, 80 down to 50. And, because my fingers have been broken, in my life, I've left my hand in car doors before where they came and slammed and broke 3 fingers. And you know what? Those fingers, you can't keep breaking them that often because when you're doing dumbbell cleans, that's everything that you've got is your grip. And if you can't hold on to something, the bench press, here's the other thing too. I got 2 titanium shoulders now and 2 titanium knees. So I'm not really looking to really force myself into really heavy weight. Because
you're more machine than man now.
That's it. You're exactly right. It wears down my calcium now. And the doctor last time I went in, he goes, "Hey Doug, you got to cut out the heavy weights." He goes, those bones in there, there's a metallic titanium ball in my shoulders, and it's rubbing on my calcium, my bone joint. And he said, "You're rubbing it away." So you keep doing it, we're going to have a big problem here.
Well, maybe we'll get our Dimitri guy who was questioning your athletic ability. Maybe we get you and him in the wrestling ring or the boxing ring, and we'll find out exactly who's the athlete.
Hey, I should have told him too in the pass, punt, and kick competition. I was 9 years old and won it for the city of Pittsburgh.
There you go.
So I ranked 2nd in the country that year, so I didn't go to the NFL game. Well, I was at the NFL game. It was the Steelers and the Washington team, and I performed at halftime. but I beat the guy out, but somebody else in the country, actually beat me out, so he was the winner. But no, I mean, I wasn't unathletic. I mean, I just chose the route that I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure I just destroyed everybody I could, and
yes,
that was fun. I mean, what's wrong with having fun and playing in the NFL?
Ain't nothing wrong with that, Doug. But we'll catch up with you here real soon. Definitely want to bring you on as we get closer to the season, or maybe when the season starts, as we get a little more clarity on the direction of the 2021 Chicago Bears. But always enjoy our talks, and I always enjoy our post talks on the phone, because they always crack up the people in the chat, because we just love your passion so much, Doug.
You know what's true, though? I mean, Matt Nagy was my quarterback. You guys know this. When I coached down in Atlanta, for that Arena Football League team for Arthur Blank.
Sure.
And so, no, I mean, Matt lets me in anywhere. He gives me, I'm not saying he gives me all the questions and all the answers, but, I think, he just needs to relax and be the same coach he was that first year. And don't get uptight. Don't let other people tell you what to do. I mean, he's a smart enough guy. He can figure it out. And
yeah, it's almost like a reset button for the entire organization and the head coach included, and they can start this the right way this time, instead of him coming in and inheriting a quarterback that he didn't pick. Yes. Now he gets to have his pick of who he wanted and do it the right way, however that entails. I completely agree with you.
You know what? Do you guys agree with me with this conference division? Hey, everybody should be in the division this year, because I definitely think Aaron Rodgers won't be in Green Bay. He won't be in there this year. There's too much stuff that's going on.
I agree.
Right now.
No,
and, then you got the Lions.
Jared Goff is garbage. He's scared. He's scared of this defense.
I call Goff the ugly Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. Jared Goff's garbage, and whatever. Maybe I'm eating my words, speaking a little too bold on that, but I don't think he's all that good. He just certainly doesn't look like he wants to play at Soldier Field. And then the Vikings, they could have had Justin Fields if if we hadn't traded up to take him. So I know that probably was a thorn in their side. And then, yes, I don't believe that Aaron Rodgers will return, but I also have to believe it to see it, to believe it, because it is so unfathomable. But I did say when he announced that he was done with the Packers, and that was broke right before the first round of the draft, I almost feel like, and I'm a Cub fan, and I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. I feel like a curse was lifted from the Bears the moment that announcement came down, and ever since then, all roads have been golden since.
I have to agree 100%. I know he's a very arrogant player, but the bottom line is, would you want him off of the Green Bay Packers or on the?
I said, Doug, if he wants to go to Jeopardy, I will support. I never thought I'd support Aaron Rodgers in anything he does, but if he goes to Jeopardy, I will DVR every single show. I will laugh along with him. I'll even donate to the show if I have to.
Justin Fields looks way better in a suit too, no doubt about it.
Show on Jeopardy, and they ask who was the 46 defense named after, and it was a strikeout. Nobody knew.
Well, we certainly know, Doug, and we'll never forget it. So again, Doug, really appreciate all your time and your passion, and we'll talk soon. All right, brother?
Okay, guys, thanks. Thank you very much.
All right, later. That is Doug Plank, interview number 2 for the day with Doug.
I'm fired up, man. I don't know about you guys, man.
Yes.
I'm fired up.
He has more energy than all of us combined.
It's insane. It's unmatched. And that's saying a lot when you consider the dais we have here. But you're 100% right, Salim. He is his passion and intensity is unmatched even to this day. I mean, he could suit up right now and be our strong safety and kill it, Chubb says that I'm pissed because I had put that dude's comment up and it's inspired all of this talk about athletic ability. But no, I love it. I was hesitant to put it up, but I wanted to hear his thoughts on that, because I didn't watch him play, and maybe Dimitri did, and maybe he was surrounded by great athletes, and he did, but he fired back, and Don knows he watched him play, and Don was shaking his head the minute I read the comments. So, it certainly seems like he was off base in that regard, and Doug can certainly hold his own when it comes to athletic ability. And hey, we've got Dimitri. If you want to find out, it sounds like Doug's willing to meet you in a wrestling ring or a boxing ring near you. I don't know. We got Fat Mike in the chat, and it's a lot of fun here. We're having a lot of fun here at Bragg's in the Stands. And again, I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time either. I know Johnny B wants to get to dinner. He's working hard as a tennis instructor, and we all got our lives and responsibilities to work with. I did want to.
Greg, you always introduce me as a tennis instructor. I am the company owner. I played ITF professional, and you introduced me as a tennis instructor, Greg.
Well, I mean, that's what you do for a living now.
I played for a living. I played out of school when I graduated. Let's give the Johnny B
tennis pro. I will say
correct.
Tennis pro instructor,
business owner. Like
however you want me to phrase it. I will make sure I get it right.
Word for me that are tennis instructors, Greg. Come on.
Okay. All right. I will make sure I get it right. I apologize. I will make sure I get it right. I'm rambling up here, so I just try to fill space with my words as I do when I call into ESPN 1000. What are some of your thoughts here, Salim, to what has transpired tonight?
I wanted to say just my thoughts on the whole Justin Fields thing and kind of compare it to the Mitch Trubisky. So when we drafted Mitch, I think the 90% of the fan base was not happy with that pick. Like,
right.
Either it was complete shock. Why did they do this? Or hated it. And if you remember when he went to the Bulls game, he got booed.
Right.
And that was almost like an omen of what was to come. Like, he wasn't the guy. Flip side, you fast forward to last Friday, Justin Fields. Everyone's hoping it's Justin Fields. Maybe you had some guys that wanted Mac Jones or maybe something else like an offensive lineman, but you get to Justin Fields, 90% of the fan base is super excited. I'm still hyped. I'm still can't believe we got this kid, and it just seems like an omen now going into the season. It's weird. This weird feeling.
It's the wrong has been righted from what they did in 2017. I'm 100% with you from the way he fell to where we're not picking 3, we're picking 11, like the Chiefs were picking or traded up to take Mahomes. We now fill what they did in that slot, and then like you said, the fans. Enthusiasm is the same. Everybody knows me as King Truther and Mitchell Trubisky ball washer. But the day we drafted him, Adam, John and I's neighbor, back when we lived in Aspen Trails where he does his duck races, Adam was sitting right next to me, and I was just as upset as everyone else because the minute we traded up, I assumed we were taking Deshaun Watson because that's what logic would tell you to do. Take the guy that's been in the national championships and took down the Roll Tide Alabama powerhouse, and they didn't. They took a huge risk in Mitchell Trubisky, and I was like home alone holding my face. And I was very upset about the pick in that moment. But just like any draft, especially when we have a high pick like that, I can come around to a player and begin to root for him. And then by the time we got to training camp and I watched how he outplayed Mike Glennon, I was a fan. I enjoyed how he carried himself. He was the opposite of Cutler in a lot of ways to me, but he couldn't live up to the talent level that I thought he would eventually get to. In 2018, for me, was one of the most exciting years as a Bears fan in my life. And I will always cherish that year for many reasons, including the fact that not only were they one of the most exciting teams, but I did cover that team. It might have been for free for all you good, fine people, but I covered it better than anybody. And I'm proud to say that. And that's not being shown. I know I'm braggotistical here on Brags and the Tans, but I put my name by how I covered that team from training camp to the final double doink when me and Jake were sitting there watching that all go down. And maybe if they don't double doink, things are different in that regard. But that's history in the past. And now, like you said, this comes in, this whole situation unfolds. Aaron Rodgers is talking about leaving for Jeopardy, and then all of a sudden the luck We've never had first round luck. We one pick short of Aaron Donald. We take Shea McClellan instead of John Bones Jones's brother. Like, what are you doing? And, we've had so many failures. Gabe Karimi. I mean, so many busts. You want to talk about Mitch being a bust? We've had a million busts in the first round. That's why. Yeah, and that was an injury thing, but we've had busts, and I'm not saying he wasn't, the talent wasn't there, but the injuries were a bigger part of that. But also, that luck was involved, but also just guys that just weren't good enough. And Mitch obviously is in that category as well, but we've had bigger busts. And this time it's a complete polar opposite of what we've gone through as Bears fans. And you're right. Everyone, I think it's more than 90% are rejoicing. Yeah. There's a very small 1 or 2% of goofballs that want to play the opposite game and be cynical and try to say, oh, well, am I still concerned about how Nagy's going to run the offense? Sure, but I've got a lot of confidence they're going to figure it out. Look how much strides they've made here in the last week. So you're right. Just the feeling and the vibes are so much different than 2017. And maybe it was destiny, because had they taken Deshaun Watson like all of Bears Twitter would have done, with everything going on with Deshaun Watson now, maybe it worked. Maybe. Just like Doug Plank, all things happen for a reason. And maybe, missing out on Mahomes, which was killer, but really hard to say they should have drafted him too. But more so, not drafting Deshaun Watson has led to this moment of getting Justin Fields. I mean, heck, they were even considering giving Teddy Bridgewater a 3 to 5 year deal last year. And had they done that, we might not have Justin Fields right now. So, everything happens for a reason, and it seems like things have finally fallen into place for the Chicago Bears.
How about this for Bears fans? Because I know it's a really sensitive spot, and I know some people that obviously lost a lot of money on it. Without the double doink, there is no Justin Fields. It's a great possibility. So a year, 5 years from now, I want you to remember this show. And Johnny B said the double doink led to the success in the drafting of Justin Fields, who will break every Bears quarterback record known to man.
I think he would have missed one eventually in the playoffs. That would have cost him the game. So I think the double doink, it's obviously just the way it happened, because he kept hitting the uprights that game. That was like his third time doing it. But
I'm just saying the path, is different. If they win that game, maybe the Bears win one more. Maybe they eventually lose. It has nothing to do with Cody Parker, but everything to do with Cody Parker. The whole path of the existence of the timeline of the world and the universe has changed if he makes that kick.
Maybe.
Justin Fields right now.
Maybe. One last thing I do want to say about Justin Fields too, I know when he was on Waddle and Silvy doing that interview, he was saying he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder. I think he's a guy that doesn't he likes to keep it inside. I think he does have a chip on his shoulder.
Yes.
And I think he's taken mental notes of everyone that said bad things about him for whatever reason that made him fall in the draft, and the teams that passed on him. I think you see that in him. It's kind of similar. I want to compare. Remember Derrick Rose when
100%.
He was asked that teams didn't pick him to he wasn't picked to win Rookie of the Year. He said, that's not, I don't really care about that. When he won it, he's like, you know what? When they said I wasn't going to win that award, that pissed me off.
Right.
He said that. I made him mad.
Next season and said,
and
why can't I win MVP?
Mm-hmm.
Why not me? And then did it. I completely agree when you talk about the Derrick Rose comparisons. And Salim, you're from the Bulls Gold podcast, so you know better than anybody. But I've made this comparison on the air with David Kaplan. Here, I'll share this video along, and then we'll talk about some of the comparisons to Derrick Rose and, of course, Justin Fields entering Chicago. Here's my call you heard the call to start the show with Waddle and Silvy. Here's my call to David Kaplan. While I was hard at work, you can hear the brick saw in the background.
Let's go to our guy, Greg Braggs in St. John. What's up, Braggs?
What's happening, Capper? Welcome back.
Thanks, buddy. Good to be back.
Yeah. In regards to when he should start or when Tevin Jenkins should take over at left tackle, those things should be determined at camp and preseason. Don't premeditate a whole year off. Don't premeditate starting them right away. Let the players decide that. And then to my second point, the reason I was calling in, somebody earlier said this isn't like Derrick Rose, and I completely understand why you wouldn't go there, because he was born and bred in Chicago, Chicago's very own. But small chance that we had to get Rose, a 1.8% chance. This feels similar in that regard. It was such a small chance that we get Justin Fields. And then when you add the fact that we were so starved for a franchise-changing direction, which that's what this is compared to Derrick Rose, I think it's a very good comparison, aside from the fact that he wasn't born from Chicago. But the impact he's going to have is very similar. I mean, some people want to go Jordan. That's where you don't go. To me, it's a very similar comparison to Derrick Rose. And let's hope it finishes the way we thought Derrick Rose was.
Anybody out there that says to you, Greg Braggs, well, you like Mitch, so you're not allowed to root for this guy, tell those people to go stick it. You're a Bears fan first and foremost.
I'll be just fine. They can come at my little Kev can come at me all day about it, but I'm a Bears fan all day, every day, and I couldn't be more excited. Yes, I'll continue to I'll root for Mitch over in the AFC, figure it out, but we have moved on to a new era. This guy is a totally different echelon, a totally different stratosphere. If you're not excited for this pick, then you don't have a pulse. This is big-time move by Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. Hats off to them, because I wanted them gone at the end of the season, along with Mitch, and you know what? They showed me. So they shut me up, and let's go see them develop them the right way, however that entails. If he comes in like Russell Wilson and he proves he's better than the starter, Matt Flynn, you play him right away, because that's how you get the respect in your locker room. If he's not ready, so be it. But let's let it play out at camp, and let's not get ahead of ourselves. But it's a very happy week, and I'm happy you guys are back. Keep killing it as usual, gentlemen.
You're the best. Have a great day and a good week.
Later, guys.
See you. There you go. Our guy, Greg Braggs.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. And, like I said, Salim, you're right. When it comes to the Derrick Rose, Justin Fields comparisons, I think there's a lot of them to that. There's a lot of smoke to that. And you talk about his underlying fire. I heard, and looking back on Justin Fields' interview today, I watched it back over the opening press conference I had with him, and Ryan Day described Justin Fields as, instead of having an outwardly fire passion, the burning desires inside him. And I agree with you. I think that there is a similarity when you talk about that. And Salim talked about maybe the impact, the way Derrick Rose came into this city. As I referenced the small chance we had with him. Me and Shane were talking about, Shane Marsoff from the Tape Never Lies Network. We were talking about this very thing. And then just the whole impact. I've said it 1,000 times before, but Derrick Rose represented a large segment of this fan base that's born and bred in Chicago. I'm from the region. And now Justin Fields, while he may not be from Chicago, and I've said it before on this show, I said it on the opening, the live reaction show, and then you've heard it so many times, callers into ESPN 1000 and 670 The Score. There are so many people that are a part of this Bears fan base that felt disenfranchised because the Bears had never drafted a black man to lead their franchise and be their franchise quarterback. And now here he is. And that represents so many Bears fans out there and so many young Chicagoans that will look up to this guy for years to come, the same way they did with Derrick Rose. Talk about some of those thoughts.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's like I said, it's that quiet resolve he has, right? He's not just the Derrick Rose comparison is not just about, like, obviously the kid from Chicago, the kid from Inglewood. It's about the way he carries himself, and that's what I see in him. I see the same type of, like, just the quiet. I'm like, I'm just gonna go to work. And like, you see the work ethic he already has. I think the Bears are posting videos of him just going to the weight room, lifting, practicing, running sprints up and down. I don't know what that workout area is, but yeah, I see that. I really do see it. And I think it's just like a weird feeling, though. The same weird feeling I had when we got Derrick Rose. I was like, we got our guy. He's it. This is it. And to your point, of finally the Bears adding a black quarterback. I'll say this as a minority, I feel that sometimes when I see somebody that looks like me in a position, I'll give you a guy like Adam Amin. He's South Asian. It's really cool to me. Seems like I'm a huge Bulls fan, and seeing that person announcing Bulls game, a guy that looks like me, it's a great feeling. It's like, wow, I can't believe this. So I can appreciate that as well.
And then how about, in the Bears terms, to go along with that theme, Sean Desai, who's the new defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. He's someone, comes from a minority background. I'm trying to rack my brain, I believe Indian descent, correct? But regardless, he, is someone that is the first time, I believe he's the first defensive coordinator with, Indian, the first ever Indian American coordinator in the National Football League. And so that's just another thing. I just think it's a powerful thing. At the end of the day, talent is what's most important. How great of a coach you are is what's most important.
100%.
But when you
100%.
have these cultural impacts that collide with talented players and talented coaches, it only amplifies how important that person is. And I don't even know if Justin Fields realizes how important his impact could be to this city. Obviously, he's got to get it done on the field for all that to come to fruition, but he could have an enormous impact on the city of Chicago.
I have no doubt in my mind he understands that. I think he does. I know he said he doesn't have that extra pressure because his value for himself is like, yeah, I'm going to be an elite quarterback. But I guarantee he understands not only as far as being the first black quarterback in the franchise history, like starting quarterback. That's obviously we've had guys that played for a couple of games here and there, but not anyone to the point where, yeah, he's going to be the future of the franchise. And then on top of that, knowing that, yeah, this franchise has never had a quarterback in general that they can say, yeah, this guy can lead us, like, Patrick Mahomes leads the Chiefs, or Tom Brady led the Patriots and the Tampa Bay and what have you. So yeah, I have no doubt that this kid just seems very bright. He understands what's at stake. He just doesn't express that. He takes mental notes, he keeps it inside, and he just goes out and grinds. That's what this kid's about.
100%. I mean, I had this quote pulled up by him, and it like almost puts chills down my back because to reference like how serious this guy is, ready to play. And we love, we love our hype and our getting lost in the sauce as Bears fans. But here he is saying immediately after the draft, I don't need to talk much. There's been too much talking lately. I'm just ready to work, and that's it. And that is a Derrick Rose Mamba mentality right there.
Yeah, it is, but I think that for Justin, I see a lot of similarities, like I said earlier in the show, between him and Mahomes, the way that obviously the drafts worked out for both teams. But I really feel like he doesn't want that. I feel like he wants to do his own thing, and he wants to put his own stamp on it. Yeah, he can follow those role models. Everybody has role models, whether you're an athlete or whatever it is you do. But I just feel that I can see it in his eyes, that swagger that we talked about, and that confidence. And he's about like ready to just show everybody, whether he tells you he has a chip or he doesn't. Everyone's got a chip if they're a competitor, and he's going to put on a show, and he's going to put his own stamp on the city of Chicago. And like I said, I feel it's the right pick at the right time, however it got there. And I feel like he is going to demolish every Chicago Bears passing and quarterback record as long as he has a healthy career.
Yeah, and we got Chubbs82 in the chat saying he's not the first black quarterback in franchise history, and we understand that. Cordell Stewart, Jason Campbell of recent, and then in the 70s, we go ahead, Johnny. What'd you say?
Doug Evans, quarterback.
Yes, Doug Evans back in the 70s, and Don can reference that too. But certainly a big moment, and there's been so much talk over the years of whether or not the Bears were willing to, why did they pass on Deshaun Watson? Not accusing them of having racial bias, but that was a question that was asked. And then you even had guys on the team like Akeem Hicks question why the Bears took Mike Glennon over a guy like Colin Kaepernick in 2017. Mike Glennon is terrible, and they could have easily picked up Colin Kaepernick, but again, maybe not a racial bias, and maybe they just didn't want the media circus in the same way that a Tim Tebow had a media circus follow him everywhere he went. And when the talent wasn't good enough to deal with that, he got pushed out of the league. So I'm not trying to accuse anyone of having racial bias within it, but it is a powerful moment, and you can't deny that. If you listen to the ESPN 1000 or 670 The Score in the last week, you've heard call after call after call of people that identify in a big way with this move. So it's certainly something that can't be underestimated when you consider the impact he has, not just on the field, but off it. So, and I also had a funny comment in the chat, Don. Bear Truth 9 said, Bearman looks like he wants to rip your heart out, Greg. Now, is this true, Don? Because we're good friends, but I don't know. You are the Bearman. So if you feel so inclined, are you trying to rip my heart out?
No, I love you.
Well, hey, I think everybody from time to time wants to rip me to pieces at some point.
Maybe because I'm doing some, claw and everything.
Maybe a bear hug is what we need very soon. We need a big bear hug.
I just want to remark about Fields. I think people are just these comments I've been hearing the last couple of days about his reaction being picked at number 11. They say, "Oh yeah, he don't want to go to the Bears." Did you see his reaction and everything? And they asked him about it, and he said, he's happy, and and everything, but he might have been a little bit. I think it's more so the way he fell. I think he didn't expect that. Nothing to do with the Bears. Saying, "Oh, he wanted to go to a different team and so forth." But I guess they're just making way too much about his reaction. That he had didn't have a smile on his face or something like that. But maybe this guy isn't really emotional either. And they even asked him. They said, "Well, did you think you were going to go to the Bears?" And he said he had no idea what team he was going to at all. So
right. And Sports Illustrated asks, how did we get here and what's next? We've certainly been covering that all night tonight, but I don't know if we'll ever understand how we got here, because it certainly felt like fate in the way that we were talking about destiny with Doug Plank. And at the end of the day, that's how we got here, was destiny. And what happens next, I don't know, but I'm really, really excited for it as a Chicago Bears fan.
One more thing, Greg.
Go ahead.
I haven't been hearing anybody, call in or even talk to anybody saying, "Oh yeah, there was a better court, we shouldn't have drafted him, blah blah blah." The only problem, the only negative thing I'm hearing is there are fans out there who think Nagy's not going to develop them. That Nagy is going to basically change him to his system, but I think everybody is saying, you can't change this guy. Nagy has to basically run a system to this guy's skills, not the other way around. So how do you guys feel about that?
I completely agree, and we kind of talked about that a little bit with Waddle, and we tried to cover everything we possibly could, but yes, that is what's still on the table. Can Matt Nagy run a consistent offense and play to his players' strengths? You saw last year when he benched Mitchell Trubisky and went to Nick Foles and assumed that they could just run their offense the way he sees the way the offense should run. Oh, by the way, the rest of the team has to be able to run the offense you're trying to run. And you also got to have a better understanding of how to run the ball, which he's yet to do. So there's so many different elements when it comes to that. And then, of course, how he develops Justin Fields is going to be crucial. And hopefully, him Matt Nagy humbling himself last year and giving up the playbook to Bill Lazor and watching kind of the team get a little more success from getting to the meat and potatoes as opposed to the flash and dash Kansas City style offense might have taught him that there's a balance. Yes, you didn't come here to run the I formation, but no, that doesn't mean you don't run the I formation. You got to run it sometimes and not pitch the ball to Cordero Patterson on the short side of the field. Like some of those 3rd and 1 decisions, he's still got to make those 3rd and 1 decisions this year, whether you got a good quarterback or not. And yes, the great and talented quarterback we have now will change the way defenses play us and will give more opportunities for the offense. But at the end of the day, people are scheming against Matt Nagy as much as they're scheming against the offense they're playing. So let's hope that Bill Lazor, John DeFilippo, Juan Castillo, Andy Dalton and Nick Foles, they all come together. It takes a village. We talked about this last night with Mitch Holthus. It took a village for me to get through the Crown Point High School school systems, and it takes a village to groom a quarterback. You know, I mean, even Patrick Mahomes has had so many things around him to help prop him up, as Johnny can attest to be the great quarterback that he is. And Andy Reid played it perfectly on how much to give him on his plate. You heard Patrick Mahomes talk about how he didn't even know how to read a defense for a year and a half, 2 years into his career. He's just out there slinging the rock. But Andy Reid understood how to use him correctly, and Andy Reid comes from a long line of grooming quarterbacks all the way back to, I believe, the Brett Favre days. So, you know,
Donovan McNabb, Brett Favre, all those guys are in that tree that he has some to do
he
with.
knows the guys that are the wild card types, like Brett Favre, who has admitted that he didn't even know what a nickel defense was in an interview once. So, and then also the guys that are a little more have a higher IQ to the game. So I think Justin Fields has that, and I think he'll be able to work off of Matt Nagy and maybe have a little more confidence on what he's comfortable with and what he's not, in telling Matt Nagy that, because I think that was something Mitch wasn't good at initially in the first few years of the Nagy marriage. He just did what he was told. And then last year, he started to be a little more honest about what he wanted to run. But like I said, at the end of the day, Mitch didn't have enough talent to stay on this team. And let's hope that Justin Fields is an amplifier, like Matt Nagy referenced, and raises the level of play of everyone around him, and raises, you know, the coaching prowess of a guy like Matt Nagy. But I definitely think, as you referenced, Don, that Matt Nagy certainly has a lot to prove to us, that he's ready to take this Ferrari and get it on the road and speeding down the road. That's what we're all hoping for.
Definitely. Yep. That's what'll keep him here. You know, that's what
100%. And that's why, you know, I wanted to push back with Waddle a little more of his assessment of these guys now having 3 years of a leash. I don't agree with that. Like, he's got to show, to me, I don't think after this season that they'd give anyone the axe after everything that's transpired. And I don't believe this upcoming season will be disappointing by any means. So I don't think we'll be calling for heads at the end of the year. But if it was a train wreck offense again this year, it would be dicey going into the offseason, and then maybe he'd have one more year to prove it. I think 3 years is a bit of a long leash. I think we need to start seeing things sooner rather than later when it comes to Matt Nagy.
Well, I mean, the contracts are up in 2 years, so I don't think 3 years is, because they're not gonna just give them a 1 year extension. I think it's either 2 years or a new contract.
Right. I would meet Waddle in the middle on the 3 years. I wouldn't say 1. I wouldn't say 3. I think 2 sounds just right when it comes to that. You know, and Chubb says he thinks Nagy might get fired if they don't have a winning record. I think a lot of that depends on when Justin Fields starts. If he starts week 1 right out the gate, a lot of Bears fans are going to expect this team to have a winning record. I mean, if he doesn't start all year, maybe they give him a pass. I think most Bears fans would be frustrated if Justin Fields doesn't start for a whole year, but it'll be interesting to see nonetheless. We got Grant Sims in the chat as we're getting ready to wrap things up here on Brags and Stands. It's been a very special show, from Tom Waddle to Doug Plank, and then obviously here with Bearman and Salim Sudarwala from the Bulls Gold podcast, and my guy Johnny B, who's always alongside me here at Brags in the Stands. We appreciate everyone hanging out. You know, last night I referenced, we talked to Mitch Holthus about, you know, a lot of different things Kansas City Chiefs related, but he also had his thoughts on Matt Nagy, Don, and this was what Mitch Holthus thought, who's the 27-year radio play-by-play man for the Kansas City Chiefs. So he certainly knows what he's talking about when it comes to Matt Nagy and developments of great quarterbacks. So here it is, Mitch Holthus on Brags in the, or Johnny B in the Stands official show last night. I caught myself, and I'm going to get my tennis instructor words right next, but it was Johnny B in the Stands first official show with the legendary Mitch Holthus on Matt Nagy right here. Fan, if I could slide in, what do you think of the job Matt Nagy's done so far, and how do you think he will adjust now that he's moving on to his hand-picked quarterback out of the draft, Justin Fields, if I could really quickly?
Okay, Bears fans, just everybody take a deep breath. Just take a deep
We're
breath.
trying.
All right. Now we can all quit talking about Trubisky because now it's moving on to Justin Fields. I think it was a terrific pick. Nags knows what he's doing. He was around. He was a big part of this offense and a big part of the apprentice year for Patrick Mahomes. I'm not trying to sell him to all of you. Nags, I firmly believe will win there. And if Parkey doesn't double boink the field goal, who knows where that could have gone. But the point is Nags knows what he's doing. He is cut from the Andy Reid cloth. He was one of our NASA scientists that decided to move there and go on. So I'm telling you, I like what they did in the draft. He's pushing uphill. I understand it. He is going against the wind. But Nags is smart, tough, and he'll coach this kid up. And you almost have a situation a little bit like the Alex Smith-Mahomes deal where Andy Dalton can help if Andy's willing to do it like Alex was, and Fields is willing to listen like Mahomes was. You've got the whole Mr. Miyagi thing going on again because let Fields just grow into the role and just let Nags do his thing. Back off. Nags knows he can win, and he can win big. So I would tell everybody, whatever patience you got to find it. Because if you run Nags off, be careful. You might get what you wish for.
Well, there it is. Mitch Holthus, word of caution about Matt Nagy detractors. And I do. After everything we've seen in the last year, I trust what they're trying to do now. I wanted them gone a few months ago, and now they've pulled me back in. So they earned that. And I don't think it's a full Monty, give them a 5-year extension, but they have pulled me back in where I'm done talking about firing these guys, and I'm talking about the future and a positive future of this franchise.
And I think Tevin Jenkins is going to have something to say about that. I don't care who you put out there at quarterback. If you can't hold that line, and you can't have a little bit of a running game, which obviously they figured it out a little bit later in the year, but it was against what I would call inferior teams. You're not going to have much success doing anything, and nothing's going to develop. So you bring in a guy like Tevin Jenkins, and you got to try to solidify that line. Football is still won in the trenches. If you give an elite quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes or a Justin Fields time to do what they do, they're going to find the open receiver. And the more experience they get, it's going to get better and better. So it starts in the trenches, and I really like the 2 picks of the Bears, and I think it's where they're going to start, and it's where they're going to build. And there's going to be some hiccups in the road. There's no doubt about it. There's always hiccups, but you learn from the hiccups, and then you become a superstar, and then you become a franchise that expects to be winning every year and competing for AFC championships, NFC championships, and ultimately getting to the Super Bowl and winning it.
100%. You guys have anything to add to that?
Said very well, Johnny B.
Thank you, sir.
How about you, Salim?
Yeah, I think Nagy has more invested in this to make it succeed. This was his pick, right?
Right.
I don't think he's going to be as stubborn about changing up as each game goes on. I think obviously he's going to have to start out a little slow because even with Justin's high aptitude and a higher IQ of the game, higher feel for the game, it's just a different animal once you go pro. So it's definitely probably be an adjustment originally, and I don't foresee maybe I'm just delusional, but I don't know. I think he has more, like I said, to ride on here.
Certainly, but I don't give him a pass on it because he knew what he was coming into. He inherited Mitchell Trubisky, yes, but he chose to come to the Bears.
Sure.
And I'm sure in his interview process, he convinced George McCaskey and Ryan Pace that he could groom Mitch Trubisky into something, having worked with him when the Chiefs were trying to figure out who they wanted to draft. And so he doesn't get a complete pass when it comes to the development process of Mitch, but at the same time, he wasn't here when they picked him, and he tried his best. At least I believe, I would hope he tried his best to get the most out of Mitch that he could. But there's a lot of other things. Football is a complex sport, so it's not just one thing. And I've said that a million times, and I became a truther because of it. But it's the truth, The offensive line, not identifying who should be on his offensive line until week 10, 2 years in a row, playing Kyle Long 5 weeks too long into the 2019 season, playing Rashad Coward way too many weeks into the 2020 season, not having Alex Bars and Sam Mustipher out there who breathed new life into that offensive line. And these are guys that were back end undrafted guys. And now look it seems like the light has come on. They trade up for Tevin Jenkins. They get a guy, Borum, a Missouri offensive lineman. They're, doing everything they can to beef it up. You got James Daniels coming back off injury. Cody Whitehair now. They know he should be at guard. Let's hope Sam Mustipher can hold down the center spot. You got Alex Bars as a swing guy. You got Jermaine Ifedi. Who knows who's going to start on that right side? So I think there's a lot more to be excited, and I think Matt Nagy has a head start on identifying who's on his offensive line this year, and maybe that won't be as cumbersome of a duty for him. And Juan Castillo obviously will have a big input on that. So I think all of that goes into how Matt Nagy fares this year, but it all depends on if Justin Fields is ready to rock right away as the Cubs ground into a double play here in the bottom of the 10th. There's been a lot of action with the Cubs. They tagged a guy out at home plate an inning ago, and then they just tied the game. They're in extras right now, and Willie couldn't beat out a double play. So there's a lot of action going on in Chicago sports. We did have my somebody in the chat. Oh, my mom was screaming for Abby, and I do have to share along before we jet out of here. Johnny B's wife Abby is who my mom's referencing, but we had an all-time great moment last night with Mitch Holthus on Brags in the Stands, or Johnny B in the Stands. Thank you very much. Tennis pro connoisseur.
There you
Duck
go.
race
a little respect
phenom.
on my name.
Yes, sir. Duck race phenom, gambling man, expert, the man in the stands.
All right.
Kansas City. I could go all day long, but here is that all-time great moment between Mitch Holthus, Johnny B, and his lovely wife Abby. Here it is, gentlemen. One.
Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs here, and you're with Johnny B for 3. Touchdown, Kansas City.
Wow, how about that?
Johnny, do it with me.
How about all right? So I'm gonna get off the screen now, and you're gonna give him the countdown, Johnny. All right, so I'm on.
All right, this is for real now. That was the practice. Are you ready?
Here we go. Belt it out on 3. 1, 2, 3. Touchdown, Kansas City.
Woo!
See all of you at Arrowhead. Let's go.
All right,
Super Bowl 56 in Andy Reid's hometown of LA. We're going.
Let's go.
There it is.
Everybody else blown away every time I hear it that Andy Reid's hometown is L.A. I mean, did you hear that at the end of that? Andy Reid is from L.A. That's just, every time I hear it, it just blows my mind.
Well,
I've never pictured him as an L.A. guy.
Well, Doug Plank talked about how he won the punt, pass, and kick contest in Pittsburgh as a kid. Well, we all remember Andy Reid's epic picture in the punt, pass, and kick where he looked like a 39-year-old man amongst kids standing there with his full uniform, and there's like all these little kids behind him.
It was like a giant. It was a giant. All those kids.
It looked like he was throwing a car when he threw that football. It was just like no spiral, but he chucked it so far.
Yes, absolutely.
Senior wife Abby, I just want to make a remark that you outkicked your coverage there.
Hey, man, I'm all about being the underdog story there, Bear Man. You know what I'm saying?
And you
very beautiful wife.
I got no problem admitting that I outkicked the coverage. I guess I got a long leg.
As we, yes, and I definitely did as well. And we got Chubbs82 in the chat. Some of his comments aren't allowed to be posted up on the show, which is why he's not on Twitter anymore, Chubbs. But he did say, nobody introduces me as a laborer, and you're goddamn right. I'm a bricklayer, so I need to make sure I get Johnny B's official titles correct. But he's a man that wears so many hats, it's hard to keep up with. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful, Heidi. I'm trying to show the love. Fat Mike says, "Shutty the face, you."
Well, you know what? It's just funny because they're just hating on it because some of those haters. Because I've never worked for anybody, Greg, except for myself in my entire life. So it's all right. I can take the heat, baby.
Well, hey, I take the inspiration because I want to be that. I want to do that for myself one day. But yes, I'm not trying to hurt nobody's feelings. Johnny B is a tennis pro. who helps people learn how to become a pro themselves. And I got to start getting my lines right when it comes to that. But again, I really want to thank everyone for their time tonight as I'm trying to read some of the chat to pull it up, because you got to be careful. You know, these words are kind of small on my laptop, and if I pull up some of Chubb's comments, I mean, the show might get deleted from social media, so you got to be careful.
Just for the record, I saw Chubbs in the chat said something about being glad about the double doink. I did not say anything about being glad. Obviously, I'm a competitor. I cheer for my team. I never wish for them to lose. I'm just saying down the road as we head to the future that the path might have been different if that not had happened. Do we ever want to lose? No. Do we ever want to lose because of a field goal kicker? Absolutely not. You know what I say? Let's not leave it up to the field goal kickers, because that's just too risky.
It really is.
Hey, real quick, Johnny B. So was Abby you always hear about these tennis pros and how they make moves. So was she a student of yours?
She was not. She's actually a student of mine now, Don. So it's kind of funny with the pandemic. She was a very high level softball player. And even though she's kind of little, she's very athletic, and she was a catcher, the best female arm I've ever seen. She puts guys to shame at the beach throwing the pigskin around. And she was actually nannying for a family where I run my business. And then it was on. I had a bet with a guy that worked for me. He was a little bit younger than me. And he said that he was going to take her out. Then I said I was going to take her out. He said, what does she want with an old man like you? I said, what does she want with a broke young guy like you? And I made that call, and I said, sorry, my man, the rest is history. So he lost that bet. I won the bet. And I guess here we are.
Johnny B's personal she's all that story. And he's always got to put a gambling side bet to everything. But also we know here from Braggs in the Stands that when Johnny B bets on something, it normally hits and he normally wins. So don't ever doubt Johnny B, because he's one of the most competitive guys I've met, and a very successful gambling man and competition, driver. So, it's been a lot of fun tonight. You guys have certainly brought it. I appreciate you guys working with me as I try to do the juggling act and try to do something we've never really done before here on Braggs and Stands, and bringing on multiple guests and having them talk together with not only that, but having multiple guest hosts. And then of course, Johnny B is always here to help me out. And it's been, I think it really was executed flawlessly, and I really had a lot of fun tonight. So I want to give my first shout out to you guys for helping me through this and being a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you very well.
Of course.
It's always a pleasure to share the mic with you, even though I don't have an official mic except the one in my computer. But, it's always a blast on Braggs in the Stands, or Johnny B in the Stands.
We are definitely having a blast here on Braggs in the Stands. And I definitely want to shout out our guys, Doug Plank and Tom Waddle. There he is with David Kaplan calling a game way back in the day when Kaplan had hair.
That might be the worst picture of Kaplan I've ever seen.
I was trying to pull it up at the end of Waddle's interview to get him to chuckle a little. But he's got some worse pictures than that. But that's my favorite one of Cap and Waddle working together on Fox Sports Net a long time ago on a college football Saturday. I believe they were calling a Northern Illinois game. But he's become a great friend of mine, and it's a thrill to be able to say that. And I want to shout out Tom Waddle for all his time tonight. And then, of course, I want to shout out our guy, Doug Plank, the most passionate Chicago Bear in history. And obviously,
I'm still fired up.
A great friend of Don the BEARMAN's. This is an amazing picture of you two. I'd be hanging that in my house proudly if I were you, Don. And then you also shared, some nice moments of Doug with me before the show started, of Doug with Steve Mongo in one of his last appearances, public appearances. And then here's you with Steve Mongo McMichael while he gives us all the bird, which is a Chicago staple. We saw Javi Baez giving Amir Garrett the bird the other day. You got Olin Kreutz and Mike Ditka giving the bird, in classic photos. And there's Don the BEARMAN and Steve Mongo McMichael with an all-time classic picture. And again, if you want to support Steve Mongo McMichael in his battle against ALS and a very, very large uphill battle he has against that, please, at the bottom of the screen, go to his GoFundMe page, Team Mongo, and please support to Steve Mongo McMichael, an all-time legend of the Chicago Bears. And, we try to show respect and pay respect to those that come on the show, but also the ones that need the help for the teams we know and love and cheer for. So make sure you do that. And I do want to give a quick shout out to my guys over at the Collector's Cave. They have a very big signing coming up. I've been working closely with them. I'm having some jerseys framed myself from these guys. They do a lot of jersey framing, but then they also at the Collector's Cave set up these public autograph signings where you can meet and greet all-time great players. And you got Jim McMahon coming up on Saturday, June 26th at the 10534 Golden Grove Ave in Dyer, Indiana. Not too far away from me, where me and Johnny used to call home. And make sure there's a few more tickets available. Order your tickets at www.thecollectorcave.com, and you'll have a chance to meet Jim McMahon and get an autograph from him. And they do a lot of great work over at the Collector Cave. So I certainly wanted to make sure I gave a shout out to them. I want to shout out my daughter Addison for popping on Brags in the Stands. One of the first times she's really made her appearance. And as Salim said, our future replacement, but Salim would like her to be replaced. Well, replace me with her right now, and I wouldn't
immediately.
I wouldn't fight you guys on it, but it certainly would be chaotic. But great TV nonetheless. So I wanna shout out my beautiful daughter Addison. Had a lot of fun bringing her on the show tonight. And again, shout out to everybody in the chat. We had a lot of fun people hanging out. Some new viewers, some new listeners. Hope you guys can continue to tune in. Having some fun as we gear into the baseball season, but obviously the NFL draft and the Chicago Bears have the attention of everyone here in the city of Chicago. So we wanted to make sure we gave it its due justice and covered it as best we could here at Brags in the Stands. And I don't think we could have done much better than with Tommy Waddle, Doug Plank, Don the Bearman, Salim Sudarwala from the Bulls Gold podcast. Make sure you guys check out him over at Jordan Dynasty, at Jordan Dynasty on Twitter. And then the Bulls Gold podcast available across all platforms. You know what, Salim? I'll let you kind of tell the viewers where they can find you correctly so I don't mumble through that incorrectly and do a disservice like I've been doing to Johnny B here. So why don't you give your final thoughts and then tell everybody where they can find you and how they can listen to some of your work.
Yeah, final thoughts. Excited about the new era in Bears as far as excited to see what they do going forward and excited for Justin Fields. And as far as following me, you can follow me at Jordan Dynasty. You can follow the Bulls account as well, Bulls Gold account as well, I should say, at Bulls Gold. And you can find me, find the podcast at pretty much any major and minor podcast platform. And you can also listen to it on the Dash Radio app on the Nothing But Net radio station.
There we go. Hey, we appreciate all your time here tonight. Salim, you're a good friend that I've met through Twitter. I look forward to meeting you in person. Maybe one day we can hit up a Bulls game together. Certainly hit up a baseball game this summer. That's probably going to be easier than hitting up a basketball game, even though they are opening the doors to the United Center on May 7th here, coming up in just a few days. So that's exciting in and of itself, even though the Bulls are kind of up and down with our emotions, trying to find their next step of evolving into a good basketball team, which we're certainly looking forward to. Don the Bearman, you're also a very good friend of mine, and I want you to give your final thoughts on everything that we've talked about here tonight, and maybe talk about where people can find you, which is at Soldier Field in the tunnel, but I'll let you tell everybody for yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean, thanks, Greg, for having me on today. Thinking of me, especially with Doug being on. I just he's my favorite Bears player from the past. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm on. You can find me on Facebook. Don Wachter, Bearman. So and hey, looks like Soldier Field is going to be 100% open. That's what the mayor says. So, they said today they're releasing tickets May 12th, so for single game. So, but you'll find me, at Soldier Field every home game, section 146, right by the tunnel there. And Greg hangs out with me also there.
I always stick next to your hip, Don. You're a good man to follow around at Soldier Field, and a good friend, and a true ambassador of the Chicago Bears. And you always give everyone. You're so gracious with your time, and you're so warm in your embrace, and everyone loves to be around you, take pictures with you, and meet you and get to know you. So we owe you a debt of gratitude for everything you do for Chicago Bears fans and the organization. So you wear that Hall of Fans jacket proudly, and you should, because, just like Doug Plank, you are a pillar of the Chicago Bears organization. And, you're an inspiration to all of us that are diehard fans of the Chicago Bears.
Hey,
so,
Brad, we got to say, you mentioned about seeing Doug in Vegas. The Bears play in Vegas. All of us, hopefully Doug, maybe if he's not calling a game, that's a good time for us, for Greg, for you to finally get to meet him.
I would love to go to Vegas for the Bears game, but I have to admit, I'm going the third week of August to Vegas. My first time ever going to Vegas for a good friend, my good friend Nick Henderson. He's getting married, and it's his bachelor party, and I'm already thousands of dollars in the hole just from booking that. So I don't know if I can swing.
It's only money, Greg. This is your life,
Johnny B,
man.
I'll tell you what.
This is your life.
Help me put down some gambling bets so I can have that extra cash to work with, and I might be able to facilitate it. But I'm just buying a new house, and the money juggling act is harder than the juggling act I've done here tonight on Brags in the Stand. So we'll see if I can take you up on that, but I'm certainly looking forward to meeting Doug Plank, and certainly want to see the Raiders and Bears play in Las Vegas, but I don't know if it's going to be in the cards this year, as much as it pains me to say that. But I've been all over the world seeing the Chicago Bears play, from London to so many cities in the United States. So I'm a lucky fan. If I can't make it to Vegas, so be it. But I'm going to be at every home game and maybe a couple road games too. So we appreciate your time, Don. And Johnny B, I'm gonna let you wrap it how you always wrap it. You can give your final thoughts and do your thing as Johnny B always does, the tennis pro himself. Thank you very much.
Well, once the draft comes along, we're all waiting for the draft, and we're trying to get it done, and we're all missing football. And it seems like all these mock drafts, these people act like they know what they're talking about. Man, nobody really knows what's going to happen. I mean, the Bears got Justin Fields. Whoever saw that coming? But you know what I say? The schedule comes out next week, so we know who we actually play, when and where, and that gets exciting. And then the season's just right around the corner, training camp. And get your bets down. Maybe you put a little something on Justin Fields to win Rookie of the Year. Who knows? I bet you it's got pretty good odds. And remember, money won is far sweeter than money earned, baby. Woo!
All day long with the Ric Flair woo, and that's what we're talking about. Again, shout out to everybody in the chat that's hung out this whole show. Chubbs82 is giving you a shout out. Salim Sudarwala for your hard work here tonight. And Billy Hurd, my guy Bill Hurd, number 9 is the best. Jim McMahon, make sure you go over to the collectorcaves.com. But Bill Hurd, shout out to you for showing up, hanging out in the chat. I miss you, buddy. He used to be a old neighbor and a good friend of mine, and his son was a very good friend of mine for a long time, and I know they're having a lot of fun and living the good life down in Florida. I follow them along on social media, but it's been a long time since we broke bread. Certainly look forward to seeing you one day again. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and thank you to everybody else that's tuned in tonight, and welcome back, Chubbs. I got my guy Grant Sims trying to get me down to Vegas. We'll see if it happens. I don't know. I'll be down there the third week of August. Chubbs claims it ain't that expensive if I know what I'm doing.
Not, Greg. Vegas is not that expensive. I don't know where you're staying. Are you staying at like the Bellagio?
We're staying at the Aria.
Well, there you go. You're staying at the Aria.
We're staying at the Aria, which is a very nice hotel, and they have
is on Fremont Street, baby.
They have a penthouse suite at the top, and they asked me if I wanted to there's like 6 rooms in this penthouse suite, and I was like, these kids, Nick Nick is like 28. All his friends are 28. I'm 35. I'm the old man going on the trip. I was like, I'm getting my own room. I'm got to be separate from you guys at some point because they're never going to sleep. And I got to get my sleep or I will not survive. So, yes, I had to fork down for the flight, and I forked down for my own personal room at the Aria because I got to do what I got to do to make sure I have a good time. But money spent is far sweeter. Money earned is money won is far sweeter than money spent, and I'm spending it like a sieve right now.
All right. I'm not sure what you just said, but I'll believe you.
Oh, I love you too, Billy Hur. And again, shout out to everybody for hanging out. Shout out to Tom Waddle. Shout out to Doug Plank, for Johnny B, for Salim Sudarwala of the Bulls Go podcast, and for Don the BEARMAN. This is one of the most epic brags in the stands we're ever going to have. We'll catch you next time. Not sure when the next show is going to come up, but make sure you keep on the lookout for the promo, and we'll let you know as soon as we find out when we're doing it. But had a lot of fun this week with all the different NFL coverage, and we thank you for all your time. This is Brags in the Stands signing out for the rest of the night. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.